We'll do it live.
Yeah, okay. We're just gonna start it from now. Okay. I just can't. I keep looking over, and every time I look to the right, you guys have fucked with your cams even more.
Action. Go
Alright,
Podcast. Action.
Who's doing intro?
Godfather.
Yeah, I'm working. And once I stop laughing, I'll do the intro. Okay. Hey guys, Tiger Cat here with the new Black and White Baeclast, episode 10. Rise couldn't make it today because he's currently still alive, so we're all very proud of him, and fingers crossed he rips during this podcast so we can all laugh at him. But we are joined by Lifting today and the removed saturation of both CuteDog and Ziggy, and we're going to be covering our opinions on 3.0, Harbinger, and Colours. So with that, Lifting, what have you been up to?
I've been doing a lot of Uberlab farming. The new, and I think we're talking about that later too. But with the changes to Uberlab, it's just so much more forgiving, rewarding, and more fun to do. Because even when Isaro has some nasty buffs that day, it's still possible to get a decent amount of keys and actually make it worth your while. And it just makes it more fun to seek out in the lab. But I can elaborate on this, but are we going to talk about it later?
No, go for it now, man.
Okay, so now in the lab there is guaranteed 4 dark shrines, and those dark shrines, they were buffed, and I think you've probably seen the changes. But the important thing is that you can no longer get a negative effect from the dark shrine, so it's always going to be positive, and this can include like permanent shrines, such as permanent acceleration shrine, which is really fun. Throughout the entire lab, you can get, any of the shrines, I guess. I think I got permanent Echo Shrine at some point too. But the important thing that they can give is that they can make Isaro drop an additional key on death, and they can also give you twice enchanted, which is probably the best thing you can do if you want to get it for profit, right? Besides that, then there's these random chests, besides the silver chests that now spawn throughout the Labyrinth, and these can be curious lockboxes, which also drops a key. And as far as I understand, there's always 2 of those chests, of those 4 chests, that will be 2 curious lockboxes. So if you want to spend the time of searching out the lab, and you kill Isaro with his buffs, then you will get a minimum of 6 keys, if you kill Argus too, of course. But a minimum of 6 keys is now the standard. And I've tried getting 9 keys so far, but I believe I've also seen someone get up to 11 maybe, or 10 or something like that. So it's insanely rewarding. Easier to make currency now than ever. The lab itself is still the same difficulty for Uberlab. It's easier in Merciless, Cruel, and Normal. And I actually, just for the fun of it, I decided to do some testing in Merciless Lab to see how much more rewarding it felt, if it was actually something that felt like a good idea to try and farm now, because previously it really didn't. I've tried that before too. And it actually is okay now. If you get to Merciless Lab, or around that level, I believe that's 68 of the zone, if you can farm Merciless Lab until around 76, you get decent experience in there, and you actually build up a pretty steady supply of currency, if you like doing lab, that is. But I will say though that for the people who really didn't like lab before, now is maybe a good time to try and try it again, because it feels a lot more fun. And this is what I've been spending my time on. I've been playing pure fist scaling Bleed Warchief totems, excluding the bleed part, because that doesn't really feel too good yet. But it's been very, very solid so far.
Does it feel like they've changed the rewards at all? Like, have they just buffed the keys and not nerfed the drops, or have they changed it slightly?
Feels like the drops are the same, except for divination cards. But that kind of felt like they reduced the amount of divination cards that dropped last league too. But divination cards are much more scarce than it used to be. Maybe also maps, maybe a little more scarce too. Okay. But definitely still very, very rewarding. You easily make, I'd say, a minimum of 8 chaos per run. And then if you get that enchant right, a good enchant in the beginning, I had to use it myself, but I got a Devotus with a 40% increased War Chief totem damage, and those are just so incredibly valuable. And I also kind of feel like Devotus are the strongest now. I get asked this every time, like what base to enchant, and I think Devotus right now feels like a good bet for it. It's just reliable, or an armor base. Hubris Circlet's not as much anymore.
Lifting, can you stop flooding the market with Devotos, please? I keep finding fucking Dark Pact enchants on Devotos. I don't want it.
Devotos. I can do that.
I like the Armory Evasion bases and the Armory S bases at the moment. They feel like the most varied. I don't know if I like unique helmets now as the enchant, and certainly Hubris has definitely fallen off a lot for obvious reasons. But yeah, that lab, man, I agree with you. That's pretty juicy now. It's fun. I want to run it for funsies, eh?
Yeah, you actually feel inclined to search the area, and it constantly feels like you're getting that small reward when you discover those chests. So yeah, absolutely, good change.
Yeah, you said like 8C. It feels like more than that even. Though
yeah,
I've been doing it pretty slow. Yeah, I was pretty conservative. I do it kind of slow, so I spend a bit more time in there. But even when I do like a 20-30 minute run, which is fucking slow, I'm like, yeah, I got more currency in this time than I would have gotten in maps. I'm like, I came out of my first Uber Lab run. I came out of with like, well, I got some like nice items from it, obviously, but I came out of it with like 130 counts or something. I was like, fucking hell.
It's crazy.
Good, man.
Probably the most reliable way of generating currency, I feel, overall. But there's like, if you find that niche thing to do that no one else has discovered, then I guess there's ways that are better. But when it comes to consistency and how reliable it is, Uber Lab is just so incredibly good.
Do you think that Lab will last longer this time around, or do you think it will still have that same drop off in a week or two's time?
I think it'll have a longer duration just because it's more fun now. And the thing is, though, if there are more people doing it, then the market is, of course, a little more competitive too. And also because it's more forgiving. It's not that, there's more people who can do it. So maybe because the market is a little more competitive, maybe there will be a bigger drop off sooner. Just because you don't make as much on it. I'm not sure though. It's more fun, so I think there will be more people who do it because it's easier for a longer time.
In terms of profit, the thing that I always noticed with the lab drop-offs was 3 things. Quality gems usually hit the floor the quickest, and I feel like they're already worth nothing. So it's not even like it's profitable without factoring that in, because they're usually a big seller in new leagues. But I feel like this league, almost instantly, quality gems are worth nothing. Lab enchants, which have a fairly long tail on them, and then the lab uniques, because they're the only like specific things to lab. Now that you're getting a shitload more currency, because you get those treasure boxes throughout the lab, and you're getting like the extra enchants and stuff like that. I don't know how the enchants are going to play out. I guess that might drop off a little quicker because everyone's getting more enchants, but because you're getting a shitload of actual just raw currency, there's a lot less of a drop off, it feels like. Yeah. Because I feel like half the money I'm pulling out of a lab is actual currency drops. Yeah, because you get like 2-3 Arcanists in some runs.
Absolutely.
Like,
I opened 5 Arcanists at the same time. It was absolutely insane. It just looks crazy. I do these Uber Lab chest opening videos on YouTube, and it just looks so satisfying putting these openings back to back. Boom! It's everywhere. Oh, do you play softcore hardcore this time, Ziggy?
I'm playing softcore this time.
Okay, because when I played in softcore previous league, I will definitely agree with you that the quality gems, they drop off as the first thing. It's also the things that you make the most money on early on, but it's definitely the ones that drop off the fastest. In hardcore, there's so many people who are not doing Uber Lab, or so many less people, and they still feel pretty good right now, I think.
Fair enough.
I feel like I'm among the very few who are putting up quality gems right now, actually.
I'm actually surprised there aren't more people doing lab with how like uncertain the shaping meta is, because I know a lot of people have been like trying to put off that Atlas for as long as possible. So it seems like now would be a good time to just like spend that extra week farming lab while you wait for people to work out.
I think I really think people just hate the lab until they get that good experience in there. Like you kind of have to force yourself to enjoy it, right? And then it kind of grows on you. And for me, it's my favorite constant. And for someone like CuteDog, it's 8s.
So on that, what have you been up to, Q?
Well, I got carried through Merciless and Uberlab, so I haven't done it myself. I did get a Dark Shrine. I like how it lasts in between the zones. That's kind of nice. I agree with the Atlas thing. You know, like I think one of the most common questions in anyone's chat is, hey, like, what are you doing with your Atlas this league? My answer is always, I don't know yet. Like, I'm just gonna wait for someone else to figure it out for me, and I'll go there because I don't want to spend the sextants to respec if I just like go all out right now. So like I only have T10 shape right now at pools, and then the other stuff I'm gonna wait. Especially like I'll wait till like T14s and above go down in price, so I can just complete those all at once. Just been playing some Dark Pact to start. Berserker, it was okay, and now I'm kind of excited about some kind of auto bomber build with the new chest, and yeah, because like everyone's playing Berserker, right? Berserker's just kind of like, okay, it's a good build, you know. People have figured out like all the different variations and stuff for now, and so I want to do something new. Coming Calamity, all that good stuff. Oh, it's gonna be. I'm hoping it's gonna be good. So that's it.
The lab changes weren't enough for you, CuteDog? Like, have you run it much since changes, or just enough to get your points and that's it?
Yeah, just enough to get my points. My issue with it before was always, you know, I run a build. I've always run builds with like no life flask, right? Whether it was because it was, you were going CI or low life, or if now because you still don't really need a life flask once your damage gets good enough. And so I don't want to swap out flasks to the lab and then like having to find all the keys and go to like lifting. Are you using like PoE lab? I'm guessing still.
Yeah.
And then like
Still
having to
does
look
a
at
really
a
good
third
job.
party, and then like you can't really pay attention to like chat and stuff like that. So it's more. I guess I'm just lazy. It's more work than I'd like to put in. But also maybe it's just because I haven't done it. I'm sure after you do it a few times, it's not bad at all. I'm sure it's like, oh wow, when you get your 8 keys or whatever that people are getting on average, there is something very visceral in terms of the enjoyment that when you open like 8 boxes, right? Like you open like sometimes you open 2-3 boxes and it's like, okay, garbage. But if you open 8, there's gonna be some cool things that happen from
Just
time
that
to time.
instant gratification.
Yeah.
That feeling, and if you have a loot filter that just plays the right sounds, it's just so good. I fucking love it. I actually think the lab is probably the best designed content in the game. Like from a pure objective perspective, I can understand why people don't enjoy it, but I don't think enjoyment is not always necessarily the factor that determines whether or not content is well done, right? Because that's very subjective. But what the lab just does so incredibly well, in my opinion, it also did that before, but it does it now even better, is that the lab has very high risk and very high reward. It's time consuming, but it pays off if you do it. Especially if you play it in hardcore, right? It's fucking daunting running around on traps all the time, and you can lose your character pretty fast, and Isaro is pretty dangerous with the right buffs. So I just feel like they've really, like, at least from the risk-reward aspect or perspective, then I think lab is incredibly well done. And it's also, lab is also for me, I think lab makes me realize that some of the other content in the game feels a little lackluster when it comes to things such as killing a boss in a map, for instance. Killing a boss in a map is like one of the flattest feelings. You're only happy if you get it like a map right. Every rare item you get, like probably 99% of rare items are like really, really bad. And it doesn't really feel like there's too much point to it. It just slows you down. And I'm all for having hard bosses. I like that they've made the bosses harder. But without increased reward for doing it, it just feels Yeah, it feels like we're back to the situation like maybe a year ago or something like that, where people just skipped the bosses because it wasn't worth it. Yeah.
You're right. The changes to lab do kind of further highlight the lameness that is killing bosses and maps.
Yeah.
I'll agree with that. Lab is super divisive, and even with the improvements, it'll bring some people that are over on the fence. But there's still going to be people like CuteDog and such that just hate it. They just don't like running traps. It's just not what they wanted out of this sort of a game. But barring it being divisive, I think you're right. Like, it is really well designed now. I think there's only one more improvement that needs to happen to make it pretty much perfect for what it is, despite being a naturally divisive piece of content. And that's the ability to trade when you're at your stashes for the boss fights. If they make that cross-instance stash-based trading like we talked about ages ago, then yes.
See,
I'm highly reliant on macros to auto-reply and tell people that I'm in the lab, and I'll whistle them and things like that. Mercury trade works really well too.
See, for me, the only thing they really need to do for Lab, for me to be happy with it, is the Uber trials. That was the one thing that I was disappointed that didn't see any change, because that is such a stupid mechanic, especially with the growing popularity of SSF. It's such an RNG heavy thing. I made a point, I think it was in Breach League, I made a point of not using trade or anything, and I'll just see how long it would take me to naturally encounter all of them. And with bad RNG, I didn't actually get to do Uber Lab until a month in, just because I just wasn't hitting the last trial, and that is just a pure for some people you get it in one day, other people you get it 3 months later. You could make them appear systematically or whatever, just that's the one thing which is just so frustrating.
Yeah, RNG content or gated content in general is questionable.
That's interesting. There's RNG gated content in terms of at Zeri, and that doesn't feel that bad. But yeah, Lab is a bit too far. We get to kind of, it's especially easy as a streamer to skip the Uber Lab thing by sharing Uber Labs that you get with your viewers and then having them share theirs with yours. Basically, have your own Global 820 sort of situation. And then for other people, Global 820 helps it a lot. But yeah, so if you're playing solo self-found without that, or even more recently in the beta, which actually had a community. I was stuck on 5 out of 6, and I just never ended up getting it. I'm well, I don't get to test my builds with Uber Lab because they can't get that last trial. It was pretty frustrating feeling, pretty disappointing feeling.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, at least the one good thing about that, though, is it meant that your beta experience was consistent of not being able to test it with your fully ascended changes. I'm still kind of salty about the first 3 or 4 weeks of Oni Crawl. But so moving on from Path of Lab, what have you been up to, Ziggy?
I've been smuggling vast quantities of cocaine across borders and making people offers they can't refuse, given my current aesthetic. In terms of Path of Exile, I've been playing that Dark Pact Berserker action. While leveling, I was the whole time, I was oh god, I wish I'd gone Stormburst or Charge Dash, and everyone who was playing Stormburst was fucking hey, this is awesome. And then I was sitting there slowly killing bosses, and I was oh, it's so painful. And then as I got to endgame, it started getting better and better and better, and it started really leaping forwards and getting a lot better. And I'm oh, this is actually starting to get pretty good. And then all the Stormburst people are being oh my god, this skill's shit. Turns out this is really bad. Even Mathel makes his video. He's I'm quitting the Stormburst build. I'm not even taking it to, Guardians on that. And he's I'm starting a new build. And I'm oh god, if even Mathel can't get his DPS that he wants with it, I'm people are going to be hating on this skill, man. I'm I guess I accidentally made the right choice. So even Charge Dash people don't seem super thrilled about. So Dark Pact seems like the winner out of the 3 there. But yeah, playing that instant Leech, Berserker, and softcore is, I'll tell you what, so I play softcore to play different play styles that you can, play shit you wouldn't ever play in hardcore and play differently, and get a bit of a wide experience of Path of Exile's play styles and do some content that I wouldn't normally do. But I've never had such heart racing Puckersville gameplay in softcore to the point where it's equaling the adrenaline rushes I get in hardcore. while playing Val Pact Berserker with Dark Pact, man, where you're like almost killing yourself because I got massive cast speed and echo, which also makes you sacrifice even more life. And then you know, things whacking me down to like 10% of my life regularly. Like I sit there face taking his arrow, and he's like smacking me down to 400 life, and I instant leech back up, and I'm like, oh god, oh god, oh god. And then he's like teleports me away into traps, and I got like 1k HP. I'm trying to heal with my war cry, my flasks are out, I'm trying to jump back on top of him. Oh my god, it's been so entertaining. It's super freaking fun, man. But yeah, I've been doing a bit of a mixture of everything because that lab's fun. I didn't intend to be like uber lab farming, but I've just been doing some of it because it's fun and entertaining. And done heaps of those Harbinger maps. I haven't done any of the white ones. I just skipped that because design-wise, it's stupid to have one currency that creates all 3 tiers of the map.
Yeah.
You know how like Breach has its different ones, and they give you access to different maps. To have one currency that does all 3, it means that you just never really ever want to use it on white maps, and even yellow maps is questionable. Why would you ever use it on any of those? You should only be using it on red maps and doing the tier 15 one. So that's kind of lame. But the map itself is fucking fun, and it's so good.
Yeah,
it's so nice to finally have like something different in terms of boss content. That's I don't think we've ever had this where the boss fight is just a shitload of monsters. That's cool. Like I guess we kind of had it a little bit with Coward's Trial, but that was kind of it's not very impressive these days. But it's like it feels like, you know, a different experience, and you're rewarded for playing like a different playstyle, something that's got, you know, good ramping up AoE. So, you know, using Abyssal Cry and stuff like that has been really good in it. But it's very fun, which is in contrast to the actual league itself being a bit lackluster, because Harbinger's just not spawning at all in maps, I feel, half the time. And then when they do spawn, they dump their pocket change on the ground and run away. And so, like, the contrast between running the map and the epicness that is, like running a tier 15 Harbinger map versus finding one Harbinger in your third map, and you're like, oh god, I haven't seen one of these in a while. And then he dumps out his 7 transmute shards, and you're like, thanks, bro.
The aesthetic of the new map's amazing.
One thing which was quite amusing, was I was planning on making a Dark Pact character. I was like, oh, I wonder, let's see what other people are up to. So I was watching some of CuteDog's gameplay. I'm like, oh, okay, this looks really solid. And then like, oh, have you seen Ziggy's Beachhead video? I'm like, oh, let's click on that. Watching you cast was mildly hilarious with the whole like, oh, nearly killing yourself. Because I was watching like Cute's version, and he's like, he presses the button once, everything dies. I'm like, wow, this skill is so cool. And then I watch your version, and it's just your HP bar is just freaking the fuck out. And I'm like, what the like? Are they playing the same build? How did this happen? I don't know.
Hold on, wait a minute. There's another way to play it.
I think there's a few variations. Like I've watched like a lot of different people play it, and there's like, you know, you go like blood magic, you can go crit, non-crit, low life.
I do like that actually. That the skill feels quite diverse, because you can play full-on skellies, you can play kind of a cultist with a bit of skelly action going on and some self-cast, and you can do like full self-cast cast speed like I am, where you're just like soaring at your arm, sacrificing life. And then apparently you've got another playstyle as well. I didn't realize there was a way you could play this without killing yourself. Holy shit, I'll have to look at your build, man.
There's also the Ascendant Totem one, which is what I think I'll probably try out when I go around to it. And you get 100% Curse Immunity, go Soul Mantle, 3 Totems, PPP. Looks really solid.
Yeah, Totems, true.
How would
do it with
Dark
traps.
Pact, how would Dark Pact hold up against something like Guardians and Shaper?
I was pretty skeptical of its single target as I was leveling it in early endgame, but now it's getting real good, so... I think you could probably, once you've scaled, it definitely needs gear. Like, it definitely, like, the difference between having 2 Apeps on versus having, you know, just a spell damage wand and a shield is like night and day. So it was like the difference between this and this.
I don't think it even needs that much gear if you go Totems. One of my viewers did Chimera in hardcore. It was like his first time ever doing Guardians with the Totems. Linked me the video. It looked really smooth. So the damage is definitely there if you go for sudden setups.
Someone has that Shaper video.
Yeah.
Where they did it pretty early on. Like, the gear wasn't anything that crazy. It's just, it's nice because it's a well-designed skill where The mechanic is new. You know, it's an AOE, so it has a lot of appeal to like all kinds of players. And then also you can build it different ways, and it's as simple as like a weapon swap. You know, you want to clear maps, you use a bright beak. You want to do other stuff, you can use things like pledge. You can use double Apeps, you know, whatever you want, and the damage shoots up. So I like it. I don't like the nerf. I hate the nerf and the way it was like implemented, but still pretty good skill.
How did they nerf it? I missed that.
So, okay, so here's my issue with the nerf. Like huge issue. Maybe Ziggy can shed some light on it since he has the insider knowledge. But basically, I'll give you guys a TLDR. Okay, so like day one, the gem gets announced by Bex. It has a 152% more multiplier as it gets released on the image. Right? We're like, oh my god, this is the highest hitting skill in the game. If you scale life, and then we're like all excited. 6 days before that post, someone asked Rory if you get bonus damage if you use your life, and if it scales off life. Rory, like we can argue the semantics and like the English that he used all day, but the gist of it was yes, it does scale off life, and it does give you bonus damage the more life you have. So we're all excited for that. Then Mark gets asked a question with the exact same thing. Does it scale off life, and does it give you bonus damage? He posts a one-word answer that says yes, like clear, and he's like the guy who makes the balance passes. 10 minutes after his Reddit post, he comes out and says, oh wait, there was a balance pass that I was in charge of yesterday, and Bex didn't get it. And we're like, okay, so you were in charge of the balance pass, so what's the actual values? And he goes, well, I don't know. Like, it could change in the future. I'm like, wait, this guy's time traveling. Like he tells us that he's in charge of it, and then he tells us a firm yes to the answer before, and then now he's saying, like, we don't know how long it's going to take to balance and stuff like that. So it was just like, it just felt really bad because we thought we had a skill that was going to, you know, have a 152 multiplier and, like, scale this and that way, and then it didn't happen. So it felt bad.
Do GGG even balance their own game? Or, I mean, play their own game? Man, I love to see that guy, GGG guy, who was on top of the ladder, solo self-found here some time ago. Who was it that was again?
I can't remember.
You know?
Yeah, no, I can't remember. It wasn't Neon, it was someone else.
Yeah. That was really cool.
Yeah, the story was, for you guys who haven't been following, it was like people were getting salty and saying the devs don't even play their own game, and then one of the devs is like, oh yeah, and jumps on, plays solo self-found ladder, is like #1 for ages. She's like crushing it, like by a pretty good margin. I think he had a pretty good lead by it. So people were just like posting on pictures of him on Reddit being at the top of the ladder and just being like,
I have a theory.
I guess they do.
This is a team effort from GGG. It's probably account sharing we've been experiencing here. They just took turns, played the same guy, got it to high level.
They probably used cheats, I reckon.
Exactly. He probably spawned uniques for himself. It's a coincidence. He has the best in slot. Blah blah blah. Right.
But yes, it does seem like GGG plays their own game. That's like an answer. In case that wasn't obvious, but there you go. But the Dark Pact thing, CuteDog, was just like, it's just utter confusion. It was like, even days and days after launch, people were asking, Ziggy, are you sure it scales your damage off your life? I'm like, yes, I'm sure, Jesus. Yes, like, even Path of Building says so. Look, I allocate and unallocate a life node, my damage goes up and down. People like, okay, Path of Building says so, I guess it's true. But, oh, God, I was so worried for a while there when they were like, we have a final balance pass to do, and then they didn't say anything else. And it was like an hour before launch, and I was like, are they even releasing the skill? I'm like,
yeah, right? I thought it would come out.
And go, am I just gonna be on this Berserker at like level 38 and be like, where's the skill? I was stressing out, man. It was a bit worrying. And then I was stressing out again once I actually got it and I was playing it. And I was like, okay, so I'm playing a life build and I was scaling up life while leveling, you know? So I was at the point where I had like 4.5k life when you usually have like 3.5k life or 3k life or whatever. I'm like, okay, so I'm stacking life. I'm stacking the stuff that I need to play a self-cast build of this. And I'm just doing no damage to bosses. And then I'm like, this is a bit concerning. And then people like, get Vile Summon Skeletons. So I whack that in, throw down Vile Summon Skellies, and instantly my DPS just goes, and I just smash the boss. And I'm like, uh-oh. this doesn't feel good. I'm like, wait a minute, it deals a lot more damage when you do it on skeletons. I had zero investment into skeletons. It was just file summon skeletons. That was before I even put minion life in. Eventually I put minion life in, it was even better. But I was like, oh dear God. So I'm killing myself. Like, I'm literally killing myself, sacrificing massive amounts of life really quickly with cast speed. And I'm not being rewarded for it. I was getting really worried. Thankfully, it turns out pretty decent at endgame, but God, I was pretty worried for a while there that, a skill that kills yourself so much, like faster than, almost as fast as Righteous Fire can, and you don't deal any damage with it. I'm like, oh God.
Yeah.
But it turned out okay.
I mean,
thankfully.
At least you didn't make the mistake that I did, which was to make a charge dash character. It's fucking... I know some people like charge dash. I know Mathel says he kind of enjoys it, but I've done 3 builds this league. My first one was Scorching Ray, face rolled everything, and then I went into Kitava blind, and all of my years of WoW experience, I stood in the fire. So then I then made a charge dash character as my second character. It feels really good when you one-shot things. But even when I was one-shotting things while leveling, part of me was kind of like, it's not Flicker. Like, it just feels like a slightly clunkier Flicker Strike, and anyone who's played a lot of charge dash knows that the mechanics of the skill's kind of weird. So you get, like, bonuses for doing a fully completed charge, but most of the time it's not even worth doing a complete charge. Also, the scaling is broken, and it's only getting, like, 0.04% damage per level, which is amazing. And there's like lots of really stupid little things in it like that, and then there's the fact that if you get too much movement speed, you actually reduce your damage, so you need to actually have like certain movement attack speed breakpoints. And my plan was to go 2-hand charge dash, which is what Mathel's doing now, funny enough. And then I was like, maybe if I go for like a more heavy attack speed setup, maybe that would be better. So then I went for Hions, and then I was like, yeah, no, let's just make a new character. So then I made Blight, and dude, the Blight threshold jewel is so amazing. For anyone who doesn't know, it gives 25% generic more damage. Chaos damage, that is.
That's not entirely accurate.
Oh god, okay. It's enemies you hit with Blight take, and then there are diminishing returns and whatever when you stack it up.
Yes, they take increased chaos damage, which is a more multiplier if you don't have any other sources.
Yeah, but if you then stack it with shock, it does fall off a bit. So yeah, it's not exactly, but it's still a pretty substantial more multiplier. And the fact that you can
multiplier.
Yeah. The fact that you can put it into basically any chaos build, and the gloves, the Allapothy gloves, like jump ahead a little bit. They're like a 1C pair of gloves, which give you a level 22 Blight and a bunch of just generic dot damage. You can slap that into, if you're playing a pure Blight build, use those gloves. If you're doing a Corsa carry build, use those gloves for single target. If you're doing ED, use those. It's so good. But yeah.
Wait a minute, Taiki. Are you using Blight as your main skill?
I was, and then Grothcall happened, and now I'm back to Scorching Ray. Okay, I've actually been really casual. I've only played something like 3 or 4 days of this new league. I've been doing this whole thing called a social life, and it was the worst decision I've ever made. Yeah.
I was a bit worried there for a second, Taiki, because Blight is now a top tier support skill, secondary skill. I'm using it on my Dark Pact build as well. It's going to be fantastic on Essence Drain builds as well. Yeah. But yeah, the new dual spreading rot, where you can stack it up to 50% increased damage taken, which as you said is kind of like a more multiplier, but not really. It's juicy, man. I'm using the Allelopathy gloves too, just so I can have increased duration to scale up the Hinder duration even further. Increased AoE and cast when channel temp chains, which also you channel it and then it applies the temp chains, and then that increases the duration of the Hinder so it lasts longer again. So you get like a 3-point-something second Hinder where they take 50% increased chaos damage. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It was such a big damage boost for single target, man. Oh, baby. It was tasty.
So, do you think we could do Blights as a only Blight?
Yeah.
No,
you can't. You honestly, okay.
Yeah, but why?
So what you can do is so if the phrase "gimme gimme" means anything to you, or "ada," so Mr. Cybreezy has been playing an occultist pure Blight, and I was talking to him a little bit, and it was from him that I made my Blight character. There is a interesting interaction with the Aldin Claw, which is the claw which, when you hit something, it does the automatic Abyssal Cry. Mm-hmm. So you shield charge into a pack, automatically Abyssal Cries. You then also have the Occultist Profane Explosion. You blight half a second, everything just falls over. Lighty has also been doing a Blight Abyssal Cry Berserker, and it's just you apply Abyssal Cry, tap Blight once with the gloves. Everything just instantly implodes. Like, you're killing like tier 15 bosses with nothing. If there's a video Lighty has where he's like not got weapons equipped, not got flasks equipped, just like tapping things one another. But with the Aldin Claw,
I would argue though, Taki, that the main skill in those builds is actually Abyssal Cry.
Sure. Well, okay. Maybe more for like Lighty's one, but for the one that Cybrix is doing, and it's CI as well, and he's still rocking like 10, 11k ES. But with the Aldin Claw, you can, for some reason, apparently cast when damage taken spells are still triggering the Abyssal Cry. Apparently, I didn't test that myself, but he was saying that he had Vortex on his cast when damage taken, and whenever the Vortex was popping, apparently that was also popping his Abyssal Cry. So there might still be some jankiness with that weapon, but either way, it feels really smooth for leveling because you just shield charge into pack, automatically Abyssal Cry, and it's just like a 2-button build. Just Blight, shield charge, everything dies, really smooth. And it's just solid. But
cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you could kind of do self-cast Blight before, but the damage just felt a little lackluster near the end. But I guess the 2 jewels here make slightly up for that.
I mean, it's still it's huge. It's a huge thing, and it makes me despise the threshold jewel mechanic even more. That it's just like, okay, we've got this skill called Blight. We want to make it interesting. What should we do? Up to 50%. It's just, and the fact that it applies to everything. It is very interesting, the fact that it changes how you play any other build. Like, if you see anyone doing Corsair now and they're not using Blight, they're wrong, basically. And the fact that I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but the fact that you make a threshold jewel for Blight, that it completely changes the playstyle of multiple builds in such a significant way, that's something I'm a little bit on the fence about. But it's definitely really powerful, and I'm looking forward to playing the hell out of Blight. I've got like 8 different Blight, either main skill or side skill builds planned out for the rest of the league. So,
cool.
Well, I'll agree, like, it's concerning making something that seems mandatory for multiple builds. But on the other hand, when it's kind of making those builds use 2 skills instead of 1, and a bit more interesting, I think it's forgivable. I think it's probably even a good thing. I mean, I have seen people play like Dark Pact without. I think Havoc's 95 in hardcore, and he's not using a Blight or the Blight jewels. He's just gone pure Dark Pact, which so it seems like you could definitely go without it, but it does. Yes, it is very nice on all of those Chaos builds, man. And yeah, as far as like I joke a bit, but Blight was viable, and with the new jewels, that gives you a shitload of like that front-loaded damage ramp, which it's like your damage ramps up a lot more quickly right at the start, and then it kind of as the hinder falls off, your damage is ramped up. So that will be a very nice boost to the playstyle if you like playing pure Blight. But I'll tell you what, like Hinder as an actual debuff, I always thought it was a bit of a joke, those ones, but applying that with when it's actually lasting 2 to 3 seconds, I'm like, oh, it's actually pretty good. It really like slows and groups up the pack really nicely. Like you got the pack all rushing towards you. You hinder the most of the front line, and they just go like compress down, and then you just blow them up. It feels good. It feels kind of good.
I'll consider trying this out.
With Blight is that they realize it's a bad skill overall, right? Like by itself, for most uses, they're like, okay, this is garbage. So why not make it better with Threshold Jewel? I have no issue with the Threshold Jewel. I think there's a good video on Reddit about like, it's okay to have like really bad gems in the game because it helps like players decide and compare like why is this bad and like how do I make my build better. And then so like after you get past a little learning curve, it's like let's make another pass at non-use skills and really shitty skills. And what's easier than adding in a Threshold Jewel, right? They can't like rework the tree. They probably don't want to tune numbers that much, but Threshold Jewel is like split arrow Threshold Jewel, please.
I think the issue, just briefly with that thought process, because it's the same thought process you see in like TCGs and card games in general, is like we have to have bad cards so players can learn what makes a good card. While I agree with it with some point, I think the issue you have with that is then if that is the case, if we will just have bad skills so people know what good skills are, that's fine. But to then say, but we also then need to make these absurdly broken band-aid fixes, which then sometimes get undone by future patches. So, for example, Burning Arrow. Burning Arrow with the extra Ignite Jewel was insane. For a very short period of time, it was like, wow, this is absolutely huge. And then you now look at the current state of Ignite, and it's like, well, okay. So you then had a bad skill, so people know what bad skills are, to then become an insane skill, to then become a bad skill again. And then it's just like wasted development time. It seems kind of awkward. And I also don't like how they do tie you to certain sections of the skill tree. It's a lot easier now with the fact you don't need to allocate the nodes in the radius. But with Ascendancy, you're being pushed slightly towards certain sections of the tree. With Pact still being kind of like the go-to for, you know, insert life build here, that pushes you over here. So then to then have the Threshold Jewels further pushing you into certain sections, it does remove a little bit about what was like first so attractive about PoE. If you can make any witch build, you can still do that, but these do limit that slightly. But that's just my opinion on it.
Interesting topic. So I like the Threshold Jewels I'm kind of like, yeah, they're all right, but I agree with, I think you've said it a few times in the past as well, where it's like, why kind of like band-aid fixing them with Threshold Jewels. The Blight Jewel, though, the Blight Threshold Jewel feels like, I think, the best designed Threshold Jewel of any of them, because
I would agree. Yeah.
I'm making like a decision to sacrifice some jewel slots and maybe change my tree a bit to use jewels for a skill that is not my main skill. That feels far more interesting because I get this interesting utility effect that buffs my, like, the way I'm playing. That feels like a far more interesting use for Threshold Jewels than, you know, I'm playing Burning Arrow, so I have to use the Burning Arrow. I'm playing EK, so I have to use the EK Threshold Jewel. And where there's not really any interesting thought process going on there. For the Blight one, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. This is like, damn, number one by a clear margin, I think. So they've done a really good job with that. I want to see more of that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Here's the thing like
go ahead. Sorry.
The thing I don't like about the trading card, making a comparative, is that trading cards like very finite number of cards, especially with things like Hearthstone, right? With PoE, like it's still a finite combination, but when you have a skill, you have to think about as a developer, like, you know, unique items, the ascendancy classes, skill tree. There's like so many things you need to take into account. That's more complicated than a card game. And I give Gigi some slack when they make like weird balance passes, or they make like things aren't as well communicated, because imagine like the build that you know the best, right? You can answer every single question, you know, all the variations of the build, and then someone asks you about a build that you've never played before and you don't know anything, right? Even though you're a so-called expert at the game with thousands of hours. So I give them a pass there. It's fine. I get it, right? But wouldn't you agree that a skill that was never used, like Blight before Threshold Jewel, like its initial variation, right? There's no way anybody's using that. So even though you might think it's a band-aid fix, it's better to have another skill in the game that is usable and interactable with different builds than to just have it sitting there, I think.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I think that the new Blight one is very good, but then you have the counter argument of why not just change the core mechanics of Blight rather than adding a mechanic you have to use. So it's like we could end up in like a never-ending cycle on that. But yeah.
I think people find thresholds to be fun, though.
Yeah.
I think it's something that makes people excited. And I also remember when the whole idea of being able to have jewels in your skill tree, when it was completely new, a lot of people were disappointed that the jewels were like generic stat modifiers. And I definitely think that any threshold jewel is always going to be more interesting than 10% more damage and so forth, right? So in general, I think it's there because they've seen that people enjoy this. It's fun, and it adds that extra element to the game, something to look forward to. I think it's also why they've now placed them in Act 5, so that you now have this feeling of progression when you get to Act 5. There's this big difference you can do for your build at that point in time. And well, I would like jewels to be a little more unique in its sense, not literally, but provide stats that you just couldn't get necessarily on gear. I think a 10% increased damage stat on jewel is rather boring. It doesn't really do any specific for the game. But if you could get some of those, I feel like maybe they've done a little now, like increased chance to increase bleeding or increased chance to bleed and things like that is one of the new things you can roll on a jewel now. That's a little more interesting, I guess, because it opens up for some gearing optimizations. But yeah, I don't know.
I think just briefly to finish on it, like if the current option is the only option to see more improvements to old skills, then yeah, I'm happy and I'll take it. I would much rather have the system we currently have than for them to just say, okay, Tarky complained once, that's it, we're deleting everything. Because, well, one, I'd probably have to stop streaming PoE at that point. Fucking Tarky ruining my fun. But also, having options is always good. But yeah, so in regards to the actual like new content, Acts 9 and 10, what has been, like, were we happy with it? Like, what did we think? Personally, 9 was solid. I liked it visually. I liked the little dino bros. 10, I really enjoyed it up till Kitava. I don't know if I want the fight to be changed at all. I just think my like one complaint for it would be visually. I think it's more of a clusterfuck than like anything else. And if the visuals were cleaned up on it a little bit, then it would probably be okay.
I like the new X. I think it's very refreshing. The boss fights are pretty fun, but I think the difficulty gap between pretty much all of the bosses and up to Kitava seems a little unbalanced. And I don't know if it's because the previous bosses should be stronger or if it's because that Kitava should be weaker. I am very confident that GGG will nerf Kitava. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. That happened with Malachi too in the beginning. And there was a lot of people who felt it was very appropriate, the difficulty level, but eventually it got nerfed to... I've always felt he was too dangerous in the beginning. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is the bosses too easy comparatively, or is it the other way around?
Compared to what we have, I think Kitava is pretty brutal. I kind of love it. And in PoE, and this is something actually that watching the new streamers maybe realize, like the variety streamers that have come over and played, when they're playing the boss, and they're like, oh, the boss life doesn't reset when you die. Well, this is easy, even on a really hard boss.
Yeah.
So because PoE has that, where you can just keep zerging down the boss, it's not like Dark Souls where you lose, you have to start the fight again over. Right? Because PoE has that, I think the bosses can be pretty damn hard, and I don't really think you're going to scare off any new players because they're going to be able to do it, right? Even if they go in and do even if they die like 50 times in the fight, they still can get through it. I don't know if it's much of a problem. I kind of like how brutal it is, and just the fact that you can zerging it down is always an option. And as far as hardcore is concerned, well, I mean, I feel like most hardcore players can get through it all right. You know, they do what they normally do in hardcore, which is to overgear and overlevel a bit, farm it up, and you get ready for it. The only kind of weird point about that is that you have this kind of like brutal preparation process for Kitava, and by the time you have the stats and gear and everything and levels for Kitava, 68 maps become a joke. And then you're in 68 maps for a while. It's too much of a cruise for a while. So the difficulty drop off after Kitava, I feel like, is the bigger issue.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that argument with the whole... Because it is a fair point, and so from a softcore point of view, then yeah, like none of the bosses really pose that much of a threat. You don't care about experience loss at those levels, etc. But I think it's kind of awkward. So for me anyway, when I ripped on it on my Scorching Ray character, before I went into the fight, everyone was saying, dude, over farm it. It's actually super sketchy. So I farmed up till 71, I think. Had 4k life, 1k mana, was wearing a Tabula and a Pyre ring with my Scorching Ray. Was using Curse on Hit and Feeble, absolutely melting the boss HP. Like, I felt it was an absolute joke. Had a decoy totem down, didn't get hit at all. and then it was just in the final phase, I got baited by his HP because I hadn't watched the fight before. So you can like put him to 0 HP, then his heart comes out again, and there was burning ground on the floor. So I'm like, oh, I'll just kill him. And then I'm like, and like, why isn't he dying? Oh shit! And then I TP'd out just slightly too late, and then died. Like you see my corpse in the portal, and I'm just like, so yeah, I think it's kind of awkward, the whole thing of you overgear it so extremely that if that character hadn't died at that point, it was ready to go like straight into like tier 8 maps, and that is like a really weird transitional point.
I tried him at level 86 or something like that. Permanent fortify, lots of armor, flasks up, and he's still like, he took my 5,700 HP to like 1,200 or something like that in one hit, and that's I mean, that's really hard to deal with around those earlier levels when you don't have the gear that I had at this point in time, or like those damage forms of mitigation. It's some of the attacks, and I feel that's too sketchy. I didn't when I got to him the first time, I paid for a carry through him. I didn't want to risk it, so I've only tried him after, and yet he still felt dangerous. Made my level 86 character, 87, feel like I could die at Kitava. That was weird.
I mean, I do agree with you guys. Like, I think he's probably a bit too brutal and could stand to be nerfed. I just really don't want them to make him a pussycat because he's. It's so nice that our final, before we go to maps, we actually get to or have to kill the final boss, and that is pretty epic. I'm like, that just pleases me so much.
It's always nice with the gear
Malachi thing. Yeah. I feel like that was just like a really cool end to, what is now a very long and epic story. So I'm glad that it is difficult, and I think you're right. I think they are going to nerf him, but I just kind of hope they do it at the end of this league, so we've had like 3 months of brutal Kitava. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that?
I was actually going to ask, do you think they do that on purpose? Because they kind of did the same thing with Malachi. It seems like when they make new final bosses, they're kind of like, we know this is overtuned, and we've done this on purpose, and we're going to make you respect it for a few leagues, then we're going to nerf it. And,
I mean, you don't want to release your final big baddie boss and people just melt him instantly. Yeah. Like watching, so Ibmi JP started playing Scorching Ray as his second character, and wait, better example even, Dan's Gaming playing SRS, right? And he goes to fight like Innocence and that, and just SRS just shreds the boss, and he doesn't really get to see any of the fight. And I'm like, it's a bit of a letdown. So that's what you don't want. You don't want like players seeing this content for the first time being like, all right, I'm ready. The epic final boss. I've been farming. I'm so ready for this. And they're just like, you just poop on him. You don't even see another fight. That's like the worst thing they could have done. So erring on the side of him being too crazy is a good idea, I think.
Well, but that's the thing though, that you can't really account for build strength, because like for my first Scorcher character, if I'd seen the fight and I knew the fire phase and I knew there was another heart phase, I would have completely face rolled it. Like I might actually just bring up the clip so you can see the damage output.
So that's not an issue then, right? Because you died because you didn't have knowledge of the mechanics.
Yeah, I died just because I didn't know the mechanics. Okay. Like I think they could keep it exactly as. They just need to clean up the visuals. I think the visuals are my only like concern I have with the fight. I actually think otherwise it's completely fine.
Well, GGG's been pretty consistent in that regard. Yeah. Making it fucking hard to see shit in boss fights. I mean, we had Malachi and Brian King, and a few of them were pretty difficult to see. This is not even the worst they've done, I think. I think Malachi was far worse, and just red's on red. At least this has a bit of contrast going on.
Which is your favorite act of them all so far, guys?
I was more impressed by Act 9 than Act 10. Did anyone else feel the same?
I would say the same.
More overall polished, nicer act, and all of the boss fights in that act were really cool. Even like just random zone bosses, like you get run into this like the mine place, the mine building warehouse thing at the top of the hill, and you run into, and there's like a bunch of conduits, and then you fight this random zone boss, not even a proper boss, and he's like doing the lightning across the room and stuff like that, and you're like, damn, that's this would have been like this is more epic than Merveil used to be before they changed Merveil. Like this is more epic than old act bosses. It's more epic than Val. It's a cool
like
Act
Val. 6. When you go back to Twilight Strand, I like the color palette. It's like soft. It's warm. You get some nice map layouts. Oasis.
Yeah.
And it's just open. It's nice. It's nice and short. Some of the new ones. What's that act that has the Clarissa Ankh quest? Man, like
Quay,
finding
didn't
the
they call
zone
it?
and the Ankh.
Yeah.
The Quay map or the port map layout. I spent like 20 minutes in that zone. I was like, are you kidding me? I found Clarissa and now I don't have the Ankh. I gotta go back.
Yeah.
And then
Oh,
find
yeah,
the
fuck
Ankh
that
and then go
zone.
back to Clarissa. It's so annoying.
Like small hidden area you never see that you have to go into before you
Yeah.
pass it, right?
Mm.
Yeah, I did the same.
Yeah,
But fuck, Lunaris zone. Oh my god, that was so cool. That's my favorite zone in the game right now.
The blue zone?
It's pretty.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, the
so
blue zone.
beautiful.
Woo!
Such a
When you
contrast.
first go in,
Yeah,
you go and you're like, oh my god, I just want to stay here.
yeah. I just want to stay here.
The blue
Make
petals
this my hideout.
sprinkled around.
Ah, man.
So nice.
Map skins, please. Shrine, blue shrine.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, we need maps from the new zones, and we need the new bosses and maps, man. Oh my god, that make me so
yeah.
happy. How do you think they're gonna do that though? Are they gonna add more maps to the Atlas and just like spread it out or something, or just add more to the same tiers, or replace some maps that are less popular, or what do you think I'm gonna do?
it's interesting.
They said that like the next patch is the next major patch will probably be like Atlas focus. So yeah, I imagine they'll just add more things to it, and just intermittently shed them out there. I don't. Also, it's weird. Like, how scary would some of these bosses be scaled up? That'd be another thing. Can you scale?
T15
them up?
Kitava? Hell yeah. That's
Very
like
nice.
the new Malachi.
Yeah.
T15 Malachi we used to have. Oh, T15 Kitava, yes.
That would be really
I'm
nice.
scared.
Mm.
I'm pooping.
And they could even keep the same format of, how you go through the 3 portals to kill like the big combination guy? You could have that before Kitava. Woo!
Mm.
So you get Ghost Deirdre, Ghost Malagaro, and then Ghost Chevron.
It's not very lore friendly, CuteDog.
Well, I mean, in the maps, it's like, who cares about the lore in the maps? Like, Malachi's
Dog.
sitting in some cave.
Lore, bro. You're ruining the lore. They're not together. They're the beasts. They're with the beast, man. That's wrong.
I'd
What are
love
you
to see
doing?
the Dodre fight in maps. The way where I can turn the Valve. That was really fun. I
yeah.
think it's
That was
one
a
of the
cool
best
fight.
fights. Yeah.
Well designed.
The scariest fight will be Gruthkol, because Gruthkol's already scary as a bitch, and I hate that guy. He's scarier than Kitava for me.
Is that the?
That's the giant bear.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. So I did that fight like 10, 15 times in the beta, never noticed anything about it, and then when I was leveling my Blight character, he just straight one-shot me with his spear attack, and then Ziz died to the exact same thing the same day. It's one of those things of, what they did is, I think the art department had run out of crayons at that point of the day, so they're like, okay, so we want this really cool boss fight, there's like a big demon bear, I have grey and I have black. Okay, so we're going to put this grey bear in a black room with shadows everywhere. All of its animations are grey and black. Oh, and by the way, you know that like spear attack from Dried Lake that you can't even see in Dried Lake? Yeah, we've put that in this grey and black room. And if it hits you straight up to like 4K in some cases.
It's so good though. It's the boss of like depression and like oppressive feeling, man. So you're in there and it's so dark and everything's dark and you can't see shit. I think that boss gets a pass on not being able to see the abilities. I mean, it's a bit of a gear. It's a bit of a gear check with the whole stacking debuff that you can't avoid. So it could probably use some work, but like thematically, man.
I don't know.
I really liked the other boss near the end of Act 7, the spider. Can
Oh,
remember the name.
Harley's
It's
great,
really,
yeah.
really fun fight too.
It's great, for sure.
One of the harder ones when you don't know the mechanics in the beginning, I feel. I have an issue though with totems not being like if she spawned in the lower part of the map, I couldn't place my totems in front of her because her entire hitbox was so large that it thought that I had targeted her and wanted to cast my totem onto her. So I couldn't place it on the ground in front of the boss, which made it so that I could only kill her if she spawned in the top of the map.
Both her and Kitava have really big issues with totems.
Yeah.
Same with like Wither. They just don't register it at all. They just completely ignore
I
it.
heard like I heard like cluster traps and stuff and multi-trap can have issues before you get chain reaction in that as well, because you can't get it onto the boss's hitbox because they're off the edge of the terrain. So there are some issues there, yeah.
I think there was a guy who showed like a funny clip with Searing Bond. It's just absolutely impossible to hit them with the way it's set up.
Yeah,
that's just purely a case
like
of want to buy testing.
Yeah.
I mean, we all expected a few rough edges.
I do find it fucking hilarious though that there was that one dude who was like, dude, these burning damage changes, my totem build's gonna be so lit, yo. He gets to Act 5, he's all pumped up, ready to go, drops the totems, just like, shit.
Good luck with that. Shit.
Deletes character, remakes. Makes a trapper for his second character. It's okay, it's fine. Throws the traps. Fuck. Delete character.
Oh, sorry guys. Can you give me 30 seconds? I'll be right back.
Yeah,
you
sure.
Just,
no.
Keep going.
Just kidding. Go ahead.
Right.
But so other than like Grothkol and Kitava probably needing a little bit of work, all the other bosses are we happy with?
Yeah. I mean, they're all pretty damn good, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like, there's one thing though. Did they just scrap the idea of the different boss fights in Act 7, where it was like supposed to be based
whole
on your
bandit
choices?
thing? Yeah.
Yeah, there was supposed to be like a different fight, or the fight was supposed to be changed based on which bandits you went for. I know, they just kind of like that just kind of got.
Now it's just the Ralakesh, the bird guy, and then like Spider, right? That's it.
Yeah, it was supposed to be. I think what was supposed to happen was you fight Groost if you kill them all, and then if you help one, you end up fighting them because they are the one that ends up going and finding the totem. So I don't know if they just like ran out of time and didn't get that done, and they're going to add it later, or they just scrapped the idea, or
they probably just hoped that no one would notice, and now we've mentioned it. Now Reddit's going to be like, guys, what happened?
I noticed too. Yeah. I was thinking, oh, this is going to be cool. This is going to be different than beta. I'm going to try and see what happens now when I help this guy. But yeah, not that much was different.
Nope.
There's also the similar sort of thing in Act 9 where you choose like who you help, and then for that one dude who made it past 2 of his previous builds not working, so like, it's fine, I'll do it just for lore. He then deletes the game over that. So yeah, you choose who you help, and you just click on them, and it just automatically accepts it for you, which I find mildly amusing.
I like, on one hand, it has 0 gameplay impact. It seems.
Yeah.
So basically, there's a quest in Act 9 where you do a thing, no spoilers, and then you're supposed to choose an NPC to side with. And if you just talk to one of the NPCs, it's like, you chose me. And you're like, wait a minute, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
And it's like, thank you. Now this is going to happen. I'm going to fuck up everything. And you're like,
I need to know which one did you side with. You can just, like, don't have to say the name, just, like, the physical characters.
The one on the far left, but...
oh, I see why.
I think I was like, I went to go like sell things to the vendor. That's why.
The exact same thing happened. I didn't even know there was a choice quest until I saw the complaints on Reddit. Because there's like no warning to it at all. I was just like, wait, did I skip a quest on one of my characters? I then go through to check my completed. No, I did that. Oh, okay.
I was listening to all the lore at the time, so I was like, oh god, wait a minute. What have I done? I was like, I guess I'm okay.
A big pair of juicy boobies.
I
just couldn't.
Oh, right, okay. I thought you were gonna say vendor tabs, but
big juicy chromatic items.
It would have been so much better, man.
Oh. Fuck. It would have been slightly more subtle.
Yeah, exactly. But, yeah.
Oh god.
I wonder. I'm curious to see what that is going to have for impact in the future, because if
0.
There's no point to it. I have a choice if it doesn't influence anything.
Okay, so what you're saying, Lifting, is when we get to Act 15 and we go through the acts again, we'll then get to see the choices that we've made.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, this would be like watching the Matrix movie, and he handles you the blue or the red pill, and you then take whatever, and it doesn't actually turn out to be making any difference. It just is. That would make the movie really bad afterwards.
But at least he got to choose.
Yeah.
That's a choose. But that
He
would be
didn't
an
just
option.
he didn't just like, all right, choose a pill, and he's like not holding his hands open. You can't see what pill's in what hand, and you're like, well, I mean, that one, I guess. Like, leaving the Matrix, I see.
Option of
Okay,
choice.
I guess.
Is it actually a choice if you're not choosing anything?
Exactly.
See,
Wow.
I feel like this is your filter speaking at this point and not you, so I'm just going to ignore that.
We're getting very deep in the edgy filters here tonight.
Okay, so to go into just like the general discussion points, because you've got quite a lot to break through. With the patch notes going into this league, was there anything you were hoping to see and didn't? Be it buffs or nerfs or changes in general? I know I was oddly upset that they didn't nerf Barrage, and people kept saying, Taki, you can't be upset, you play bow builds. Which is like, fuck's sake.
You can obviously not have an objective opinion about game balance if you are the one who benefits from it.
That was the thing that I really liked. I'm like, yeah, so I mostly only play bow builds. I kind of hope they nerf Barrage. You're not allowed to have an opinion. You only play Barrage builds. I'm like, that's the point. If anyone should be able to have an opinion, it should be the dude who plays the skill.
Well, if
Well, logic checks out.
Yeah.
For me, it was like not picking the ailment system back up after they left it bludgeoned and bloody and, you know, heart barely beating on the floor. So bleed kind of turned out okay-ish. It's now kind of like an alright way to increase your damage on if you're playing like a Sunder build or something, for example. So bleed's like okay, but yeah, ignites and poison. It's like they fixed everything with it, right? And made this pretty awesome new system, really. Like, the mechanics of the new system are actually really cool. I've done, like, a lot of research on it and compiled heaps of, like, information on how it all works. And the mechanics, I'm like, yeah, this could be really good. But they just, like, beat everything back down. And then I'm like, okay, now the next step is for them to release the patch notes, and everything kind of gets brought back up a little bit, and then it's in line with other builds. But that part never happened, so I'm guessing that part's coming for 3.1. And the other side was, I was hoping for a little bit more just love to things that were lesser used in general. We didn't really see much of that this patch.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of great nerfs, I think. A lot of the nerfs were justified and pretty good, I think. But we didn't see much of the opposite side of the spectrum, which is funny because I've heard the developers mention specifically the idea of a nerf budget, where it's like, they know you can nerf a certain amount of things depending on how many other things you buff before the community starts to riot. I feel like they well and truly exceeded their nerf budget for this patch.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah,
It was savage this time around.
it was a savage beatdown.
Bills being killed left and right. It felt good.
The node changes, the last minute node changes for ailments were really good, but it wasn't enough for poison. It was enough for bleed though.
Oh, I just feel like it's so poorly done though. With
It's just
respect,
not
like,
done.
I hate how every fucking weapon node is now littered with increased ailment.
Oh yeah, it's a
multiplier.
mess.
It just looks, it's messy, and I'm sure that from a new player perspective, that just makes it look even more daunting. Like, what is all this crap here, and what's the difference between damaging ailments and non-damaging ailments and so forth? It's probably a step in that right direction to deal with it. For fuck's sake, my hair just keeps annoying me. It keeps going to my eye. But that really felt like a band-aid solution here towards the end by just applying it like that. Really didn't like that. I would almost rather have it not happened and then waited until a better way to introduce it.
It's like they took on a massive undertaking in terms of balance, and also at the same time a massive undertaking in terms of content. It's like, well, maybe you should have just done one of those things at once. Jesus, oh god, oh.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I think I agree with that. It was also, I think the whole like last minute just add ailment to everything made the whole like testing period feel not necessarily meaningless, but it kind of like if people knew that was coming, then we would have tried other things. It made a lot of, they just feel like, great, that was really worthwhile. I'm glad I spent all that time testing all these things. It makes you wonder, like, was that always planned from the get-go? Probably not, with how like last minute that it seemed as an approach. But
yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely don't think that was planned from the get-go.
it's just
It felt like
I mean,
they
then-
needed another week or two, but they can't do that. They can't do a really long beta. The last really long beta was brutal on the game and on the community. So they kind of just ran out of time, really, I think. So it's just
I'm
a
glad they
massive
didn't
taking.
keep it in a beta too. It definitely grows stale, the game, at that point in
Yeah,
time.
I mean, it's like, I guess it's not like the end of the world that we have a league without Poison and Ignite being dominating. I mean, they've had plenty of time. It's like, I guess it's pretty disappointing if that's your favorite way to play, but there are lots of other fun playstyles right now, and build diversity overall is still really, really good.
It
feel like
has taken a slight hit though. You have to admit.
I don't know. I'm wondering though. Like, do you think so? I
think so.
I feel like this has been one of the more diverse leagues. I don't know. It's hard to judge, but
It's more diverse just because everything that was like at the top was brought down. So now it's like, well, I can choose to be like bad, or a little bit less bad, or kind of okay. Not like that. That's a little bit too much hyperbole. But everything's more on the same level because, like, there's no more casting while you're moving with whole screen AOE. That's the big thing, right? Even like whether or not you like that playstyle, lots of people played it just because it was the best for if you liked mapping. Now it's like, well, everyone can do some sort of like EK Dark Pact playstyle where you're shield charging for movement, and then you have some kind of spell echo or some kind of AOE, and there's only so fast you can get with that when you have to cast your skills, sometimes 2 skills. I think that's what makes it seem like there's more build diversity, even if lots of people don't want to play some of those builds as like their first choice, right? But you kind of have to.
And I guess technically the build diversity is reduced because you can't do the builds that you could do before, but now it feels more okay to do those builds that didn't rely on Ignite and Poison. So it feels more diverse, maybe.
It just feels like there's a really solid mix of people playing mind builds, people playing summoners, people playing people playing melee. It's like melee is one of the more popular things to play right now. Lots of totem love, maybe not so much bows. I'd like to see more people playing bows, or some reason play bows at the moment, but not so much of that going on. But lots of different types of spellcasters. We've got lightning spellcasters, we've got cold spellcasters being played.
I mean,
people still do flame blast totems and stuff. So it seems really diverse to me.
I think it might just be a pet peeve on my point because, so like you know how you said you kind of wish there'd been slightly more changes, just like across the board skill-wise in the last set of patch notes. I made a video basically saying that, and I got lampooned, and people were telling me build diversity's never been so good, and I was just like, really? Are you sure about that? Because it feels like, so from the point of view of bows, you either are playing Doomfletch or doing something with new Lion Eyes. That's kind of it. For melee builds, while there are quite a few good melee builds, it's not like melee was bad before. Like Sunder was still like a really solid starter. Insert LE Fizz conversion build was really good before. That hasn't changed. There is some lightning builds, but we all agree that they're not that great actually because Stormburst kind of teeters off. Frost Orb or Bolt, whatever it's called, that was already really solid. It's just, I think what happened is a lot of the builds before, which were like high tier 2, low tier 1, which weren't seeing much representation because of like how obvious some of the dot builds were, those have just like they've just become more popular, so people think these are new builds, but those were all really powerful builds before. It's just people weren't really playing them.
That's what I'm saying, though. Yeah, people have spread out amongst those instead of all gravitating towards the same really crazy poison builds and so on.
Yeah.
Like that is build diversity. Yeah, the builds were there, and maybe they're like the exact same strength they used to be, but because the other builds that were really like lightning rodding people to them have been, gutted or removed or nerfed a bit. Yeah, that is increasing diversity.
I feel like we have a class of builds that are suffering right now, though, and that is the archetypical spellcasters, self-cast spellcasters, because, and this was an issue before the whole CI thing got out of hand, where there were some issues with setting up defenses for these types of builds. It just didn't feel too well. You felt gimped, and you had to invest too much into damage to make the spells clear as fast as the counterparts. But then CI, that meta came out, and you could get a ton of energy shield, and so you didn't have to focus too much on defenses, so you could invest more into offense and make some of those things work. But now that that is gone again, even with the buff to Mind Over Matter, it still feels like the defense for self-casting traditional spellcaster builds, if we can call it that even, just feels lackluster. And at the same time, the skills that are available for self-casting, there aren't that many really attractive choices here. I haven't played a self-casting spell-based for a very long time, except for Essence Drain. Have you guys played anything like that yet lately?
I guess Dark Pact
Scorching
would
Ray is
be-
pretty good.
Yeah,
Scorching
I
Ray
guess
and Dark
Scorching
Pact.
Ray.
And Dark Pact, yeah.
I think a lot of it
That
kind
was
of
pretty tasty.
it sort of it's how you define it. So like Freeze Pulse is pretty solid, Frost Orb is pretty solid, Frost Bolt I keep calling it
What
orbs.
do you use for defenses though?
You grab Leech, Valpact if you're like Inquis or something. Otherwise, kind of go Mom. With maybe one Blasphemy, since the new Blasphemy is really solid again.
I just feel like Mind Over Matter, while it is strong, once you get to a certain part in the game, when you get to like tier 13 plus maps, and you have some nasty damage multipliers, Mind Over Matter, even if you have like 2,000 unreserved mana and good regen, you get into some really, really nasty situations where you can't cast your spell because you're being drained because you're taking too many hits, where I'm not saying the builds can't work. You can obviously make them work, but there's just some much more safe and reliable forms of defense you can get as a melee, as a ranger, as a totem user, etc. I really don't think it feels good right now playing that type of build. Also because you now have to invest into a little more damage, and if you want to use auras for that, then you're already gimping yourself if Mind Over Matter is that way of getting defense on those types of characters. But you can, of course, do like spellcasters with armor. That's, I guess, okay. Isn't that what you're doing too, Ziggy? It's like an armor-based type of spellcaster.
Nah, it's just got like 9k life.
Well, that works too.
Jeez, 9k. Are you using a combs?
No, no counts.
What?
A lot of people doing
Crazy.
Dark Pacts, not crit, are just rocking like 250 to 300% life on the tree.
Yeah, I got like
I need to look into
267
that.
or something.
Sounds fun.
I think though you might be right lifting like with spellcaster defense has been a thing for a concern for a very long time now. But I think the issue might more just be that a lot of the spells just aren't very good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like Scorching Rays, just fine. Dark Pacts, just fine. Frostbolt's just fine. But then your arcs and your fireballs and your freeze pulses and all that, they're just not that good enough. If they were a bit better, then the defense issue wouldn't feel so bad, I guess. I don't know. Or you would see more of them. I feel like less the defense concern and more the spells being a bit weak concern.
I think a lot of this kind of goes back to the removal of shotgunning in a way. I think when we lost shotgunning, we kind of went into this thing of just does the skill AoE overlap? If yes, can I make this broken using a Dying Sun? If yes, this is good skill tick. Other than that, you just pick whatever has the highest base damage of that one element, and that's just the de facto for that element. And because of that, spellcasters suffer a bit because there aren't that many super interesting mechanical stuff. So for lightning skills currently, there aren't really any amazing lightning skills because there isn't just one lightning skill spell-wise which has just a solid mechanic to it. Since the game,
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
since the game's no longer old school PoE when freezing was a really solid form of defense because the fighting was slower, then cold skills had a reason to be there. Now you just go for what has the highest damage. With fire skill, since Ignite is now kind of dumpstered, unless you're playing a particularly powerful fire skill, there's no reason to do it. So Scorching Ray just has really solid boss damage, so you do it just because of that. But that could be any elemental type, and it would still be solid. And I think that's where the spellcaster issue falls, in my opinion. I don't know. What were you going to say, sorry, Lifting?
I feel like that ever since it was in patch 1.3, where Arctic Armor, Mind Over Matter, and the High Mana Region, that was really solid back then. Like, really solid. Too strong, probably.
Too strong, yeah, but pretty good.
But ever since then, that's where I felt like there hasn't been a good situation for caster defenses. It's like it never really recovered fully, even with Eldritch Battery, Mind Over Matter, and Zealot's Oath now. But at the same time, I think maybe there's some truth to what you're saying, or both of you guys are saying, because ever since then, we haven't really gotten any new traditional typical spells that are actually particularly good, comparatively at least. I would really like to see that again.
We could do with some more defensive spells, I reckon. Would be nice. Spells that incorporate some sort of defensive mechanic into them, or spells that, like Blight's got a hinder, kind of that sort of thing. But also potentially stuff like Arctic Armor, buffs and things that you can do, especially around that 25% mark. More things like that, I think, could be a pretty big help.
And I think maybe the current meta now will start to open up for those possibilities, because it wouldn't make any sense in 2.6 to have spells that also provided some kind of defensive bonus for the most part, right? Because you were just your best defense was just to clear the entire screen in one click. There was no point to it anyway. But now that the game feels slower, and I like that, it kind of opens up for that again. That's one of my favorite things with 3.0 right now. It feels like with the monster balance changes and the nerfs to builds, it actually feels like I'm fighting the enemies a little more instead of just deleting them. I have to position myself a little more now, but who knows how long that will last. I think it's a matter of time.
Also, just as an interesting side point, how do you guys feel about Leech options now that most spellcasters are going live? Because it feels really hard to pick something which isn't a Berserker these days. Since you guys are currently playing Berserker.
But the Berserker is too strong, simply. Like, it's still way too strong. The interaction it has with wall pacts, that's just too good. I haven't really used any other form of Leech recently, have you guys?
One quick note for anyone playing Dark Pact Berserker: if you have 40% Chaos Res or lower, if you use a Deirdre's potion, it triggers Savage Hit instantly when you push it. So you can trigger Savage. Yeah, if you're doing 10%. Yeah, it counts. It works.
Yeah, it does.
And so you just have on demand. So if you're mapping, you just keep hitting that. Always 50% increased damage, 25 attack speed, and 100% leech. It's pretty nuts.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I think we'll see a lot of value added from 0.6% on boots. That's going to probably be a go-to, unless if you're not Berserker. Because nobody wants to run some kind of Warlord's Mark setup, right? Nobody wants to run
especially with the new bosses as well. Since it has reduced effectiveness.
Yeah, it's useless against bosses, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, just briefly on the Duedry's comment, you can also, depending on how short range your build is, do that to do cast on damage taken, like curse on hit and blade vortex and stuff like that. I remember back when Mind Over Matter Blade Vortex Pathfinder was a thing, people used to do like their normal DPS Blade Vortex, then have like a curse on hit setup built into it. You can trigger it really easily that way, but links might be an issue nowadays, since people use Combs boots a lot.
I think Leech in general for spellcasters is probably just going to be less of a used mechanic. It's harder to really make super reliable now without too much investment. And now that we have Mind Over Matter being buffed so much, it's easier to get large health pool. It's easier to get large mana pool too. It's just easier to sustain your skills. And I think a lot of the reason why people often pick up Leech is just so they don't have to use a mana flask. A lot of people is in many cases fine using life flasks for that particular purpose.
Do you think it's time to revisit Leech options for spellcasters? Because it is so awkward.
Yeah, it's super awkward. I hate it. It's prevented me from playing certain spellcasters lots of times. I definitely think we need a revisit. And we need some kind of Leech nodes in the top of the skill tree, like top left or something like that.
I think when they nerfed a bunch of items down to 0.2% leech, that was like, I thought it was a fucking garbage change at the time, and it just feels even more garbage now. Like the Doriani's belt, like why isn't that like 1% or something? It's 0.2% leech. There's nothing. Like maybe it's enough to just give you something that you can see on your life bar, but it's just like that should be like it's not a particularly strong belt. It's got a little bit of damage on it. Why doesn't it have? If you get wearing an item to get leech from it, you should actually get some leech from it. Like, so that would help if a few of those items that were nerfed. There's some weapons and there's some there's the belts and there's a few other bits and pieces that have leech on them. They're just not getting used as leech items right now because the leech they give you you don't even notice.
Well, you could also like negate the need for it, I guess, if you. I was considering going, let's say you go a class that you don't want to go Elementalist, right? You can go Scion and get the reduced Reflect for Elementalist and then go another subclass there. And then like other sources of reduced are Pantheon is 25% reduced Leech, or not Leech, reduced Reflect. And then like Fortify reduces Reflect, Ash, Frost, and Storm reduces it, Sibyl's Lament reduces it. So you can very easily, if you go Scion Elementalist, just get 100% without even trying. These days, it's just the reliability and what you have to do to get immune to Elemental Reflect could be kind of annoying for some builds.
The problem is even if you're immune to Elemental Reflect, not having that inbuilt Leech does make your build a lot weaker in a lot of cases. Like, if Scorching Ray had the option to Leech, that would be such a ridiculously broken build because there's just the damage output. So you can't just be like, oh, I just won't have Leech and be Reflect immune. And unless we see a big defensive rework, Leech will be a staple for any build which can get it easily, just because it's such a powerful mechanic. Especially when people like you don't like running life flasks. Like, can you imagine playing your current like Berserker? I know it's Dark Pact, so you definitely can't imagine playing it without Leech. But like, can you imagine playing life-based Scorching Ray, for example, with only like 4% regen and no potions? Like, that's a little bit YOLO for my tastes.
Right now it's just the assumption that you will, like, it's early in the league, right? So we're figuring out like certain problems. There are problems that need to be solved with most of your characters. You don't have the good gear. You don't have all the enchants you want. You don't even have all the gems maybe qualityed. So it's like right now the priorities are a little bit shifted. Once you get enough monies, you can always buy 0.6 on boots, which I've always found, at least for mana and life. If you have enough damage, it's okay if you're map clearing. On bosses, I don't know how that is. So you do have the boot option, which covers, even though it's killed recently, so it's not even like a full leech option, but it's still there.
Do you think stuff like that might, because I feel like people are getting to the point now where they're working out, is it worth killing bosses or not? A lot of people kind of feel like it's not. With the fact that the Leech enchant on boots is really solid, do you think we're just going to see a bunch of spellcaster rebuilds which just rely on that and skip all the bosses? And it's just like, we just face roll everything, we use this as our only source of Leech, go really offensive with other parts of the tree and gearing, skip all the bosses, seems good.
When you say bosses, you mean like map bosses?
Yeah, map bosses.
Okay, yeah. Well, in a week or two, nobody's going to be talking about bosses, I'll tell you that. Like, no matter what build you can play like 2-link Stormburst, all right, you get your gear and bosses aren't an issue. Like, it's a 100% increase in life. It took like almost no gear for, like, when you started, Dark Pact felt like garbage. It was down here. Then once you got it rolling, the boss dies in like half a second anyways. So it was like, I don't think the boss life in maps is as big a deal as maybe beginning players are like, as everyone says that it is. It's not a big deal. You're going to be face rolling bosses in a week no matter what.
Yeah, it's probably more the fact that it doesn't seem to be worth the time to do it, or they buff them without any like significant reward to it, right?
I think it's still worth doing it because of the map drops.
Yes,
Maybe.
that's the only thing. That's what you're
Maybe.
hoping for, right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like,
I don't know about Leech because it's just one of those mechanics that seems to be either way too good or just not worth picking up. And I would much rather that they if it was to be extreme, just remove Leech and had us rely on other mechanics to solve these issues. But I have a hard. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are we just moving away from Leech in general, or or is it just like a bump in the road right now for the mechanic?
I
Yeah,
would
no
say
way. We're not moving away
leaning-
from Leech.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like
I don't think we're moving away from Leech. Like,
Yeah, that's what I'd say,
it's just a bit
exactly.
awkward on some
Yeah.
setups.
Okay.
I will
'cause-
say though, playing a Berserker, it is kind of fun having a heal skill and a Warcry. Like, obviously I have the instant Leech, so for some things it's a bit stupid, but you know, when I'm doing my traps or I'm in a fight and my Cloaked in Savagery hasn't procced and I'm like kind of backing off, waiting for my heal to come off cooldown, tapping it, healing 25%, bouncing around a bit, hitting it, tapping 25%. That's kind of cool. I don't know, maybe there could be a little more of that. They've never really given us any sort of healing skills exactly, apart from like really shitty things like vitality and stuff, and like a tiny little bit of heal from Enduring Cry. But having that's actually kind of cool.
I was thinking
Right.
about that the other day too, in regards to unique flasks. There's Blood of the Karui, but other than that, there's not really any unique healing flasks, right?
Forbidden
They're
Taste, which is actually decent, but doesn't
Forbidden
see much
Taste?
use. Yeah, it's 100%
Is that a-
heal, 2 uses. You need Chaos Res though.
But what's the base of it?
Quartz Flask.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, but there's no like live unique flasks, right?
But there's that and Blood and Crew, and that's it basically. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. But again, that's probably one of the. It can probably become a very mandatory pickup really fast with such a simple mechanic.
Oh, fun fact side thing. Just talking about like skills which have small uptimes. If you're playing a Mind Over Matter build and you want Arcane Surge up 100% of the time, you don't have to proc it. You do Clarity, Increased Duration, Arcane Surge, and you just toggle Clarity on and off for the buff.
Does that work?
Yeah. I was doing that with my Scorching Ray character because I was like, I'm a trickster, so my movement skills are free. How am I gonna proc this? And I was just like, I get Increased Duration anyway because it's Scorching Ray. Hang on, links to Clarity, presses the button for a boss. Yeah, this works. Okay.
Okay. Clever.
Yeah.
Nice.
But so since we talked about maps a little bit, how are we feeling about the map system in general, and then tying that into Pantheon, and then like moving on? So I know that a lot of people just don't know what they're doing at all with their Atlas. So the guy I normally map with, who's pushing, last time I checked, he was like rank 5 or 6 on the hardcore ladder. So it's like it shows the one league he doesn't map with me. He's actually doing really well. So I think that reflects more on him than me as a player. But anyway,
go with
he's fighting for rank 1 Slayer with someone else. The guy he's competing with just hasn't shaped his Atlas at all. And my friend is just doing race course, and I can't remember what else. But I think it's quite amusing that you have someone who's like rank 4, rank 5, rank 1 Slayer, just hasn't even touched any shaping because they just don't know what the fuck to do with it. Yeah.
What is the typical maps that people shape now? It's shore, race course. Is it still primordial pools too?
Pools or dunes, I think.
Dunes, yeah.
Some people are still doing Mesa, but a lot of people don't like the boss. 'Cause it's quite tanky.
Yeah, the boss is a pain in the ass if you're pure fizz at least.
It's definitely not Strand. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, no, Strand's dead.
One good thing though is you notice the new details on Strand. The ground looks amazing. The water looks amazing. The left
You can now
side
see
of
it
the
from
map.
ups.
Like the hills are like a jungle, like a very lush jungle now. It looks incredible, but it's very sparse, so that kind of feels bad.
So you've been testing it out, CuteDog?
Just by running whatever like yellow strands drop for me, but you definitely notice that it doesn't feel good from what you're used to.
Yeah, okay.
Dune still feels good. Pools is like okay. I like the color that they changed pools to. It's like a deeper brown, a more earthy brown. I like that. They nerfed shore in terms that it's way brighter. It's like too bright for me. I can't do it. Have you guys noticed this?
Yeah, I
They
have
upped the
that with
gamma
some
on it by
layouts.
a
I'm like,
lot. So I'm not gonna do shores for that reason. But Spider Force layout is a little bit different now too, I think. And
Get the Headhunter card in there though. I once got that.
100% of 0.
Yeah,
Still 0.
true.
Oh, and for anyone who doesn't know, sorry, just to cut you off, they changed mob density in the last patch for different maps, so that's why we're saying Strand is dead, for example, because they really heavily hit the density. So that's why you might want to rethink your shaping strategy if you weren't aware of that. But go on, sorry.
Have you guys noticed any that feel obviously increased in density? Because I was kind of hoping that like I jump into a cells or something and I'm like can't move because there's so many mobs in there. But there's not been enough to notice. But
In which one? Sorry.
I like
I'm
Thicket.
just Thicket.
Yeah, Thickets. I don't know. I guess I didn't run many Thickets before, but going to Thicket felt okay. And if you got, like, now AoE got nerfed a few patches ago, now like the more thin, the less girthy maps, you basically have whole screen AoE because the corridor is so small. So it's kind of a pseudo bonus maybe.
It's a buff to AoE nerfs.
But then those maps then also suffer from the 1 in 1,000 maps that spawn breach. You then get a shitty breach.
Oh yeah,
it's really thin.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
How do you guys feel about breach? So I've done like no mapping at all because I've been casual this league, but like
love breach.
Breach?
So good.
But what like the spawn rate? Like how are you feeling? Does it need to be adjusted or anything, or is it fine as is?
I would like to see it higher.
Yeah, I think they ninja buffed it. I really think they do. They did. Before it was like it's supposed to be 10%, but yesterday when I was mapping, it was popping up quite a bit. Now once again, small sample size on one guy, but I was like, why am I having so much fun right now in this league? I don't understand. Like before, it was every time I saw that little red hand, I'd instantly be like, oh, I'm about to have so much fun. This is great league mechanic. And then yesterday it was just every other map. It felt so. But there's no announcement, so I'm guessing they didn't do that. I just got lucky for a day.
I had a viewer who said that he would have been much better off if GGG had just decided to run Breach League again this league instead of Harbinger League. So just reuse it. I actually think I would agree with that.
Breach maps are better than Harbinger maps, unique maps are better than Breach domains, I think. I really like the new unique maps, but overall, yeah, the breaches is it's so good. Everything about it.
Risk reward, that's the nice thing about it, I feel. Again, it does that really well. What the Harbinger maps are they? How accessible are they? How easy are they to obtain?
Well, we can't really say because they're being buffed quite substantially in the next update because they're saying they're going to be more likely to roll and also more orbs will drop. So that's a very substantial increase. So it's getting buffed on two fronts.
But how does it feel now then?
It definitely needed the buff, I think. Like in order to get it, it needed the buff. So I think the change is going to be pretty on point, hopefully.
Okay.
So don't run your
see what
maps.
people will be shaping to. But you can't really go wrong with the ones we already talked about. Arid Lake is still pretty solid.
It seems like, I don't know, it might settle out after like a month or two, because it took us a while to optimize and figure out the Atlas before, so it might shake out in a while, but at least first impression-wise, it seems like people are, when I ask people, like, oh, what should I shape on this tier, and chat's like a bunch of different answers, I'm like, that's kind of cool. People seem kind of not sure, or people have different opinions on the maps they like, and that seems better than just, well, obviously you'd do Strand and then put 15 sextants around it. Obviously. So it seems like an improvement.
I think what I'm going to do endgame is Zana 8. I'm going to put Breach on every single map later on. And then like for pools, if you get that sextant, that's another Breach. That's 3 breaches per map. That's pretty fun, right? With buffed Harbingers? Oh, man. So, yeah.
How much is the Zana 8 Breach again?
6 chaos.
It's not that bad, to be honest.
Now, when you think about it in terms of exalts, it's like 15% of an exalt to run a map, but I think it'll be worth it for the fun aspect.
What's the exalt at in softcore right now?
40 chaos.
40?
Yeah.
Okay. Seems a little more natural than last week.
People probably don't want to like exalt the new gears, right? Like before it was like the ES stuff, it's familiar. You're like, okay, big ES piece. Now it's like, I can just go to PoE trade and I don't need to exalt it. I just buy this life piece. first of all, I don't even know if it's a hybrid or a real one on PoE Trade yet, so it's just to, like, stay safe, you know?
How do you
Yeah,
feel
less
about
ES
that?
gear exalting.
The whole like hybrid role fuckery. You can't tell what the hell you're buying.
Well, it's a lot
Yeah.
easier to get. It doesn't matter. It
Just like-
doesn't really matter what's on it. It's a lot easier to get like over 100 life on each item now.
That is cool, yeah. It
Definite
adds a little
life
bit of
loss.
deception to trading, which I'm a big fan of. I like how when the economy, there's these little funny things that happen. 'Cause, you know, it was before it was like the lesser version was like buying the hubrises that someone didn't know that you could craft the ES on and make it like over like, you know, a massive amount of ES. And now it's kind of like, okay, if someone doesn't know and you're sure of it, if you can be, you can take a gamble and maybe it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Before we move on from the map thing, so currently curse immune flasks are or they're like overriding curses on maps. We haven't had an
Looks like
official statement from GGG yet. Do we want this to stay?
Yes, absolutely.
I think I'd agree. Yeah.
Because you have to give up a suffix on one of your flasks.
Well, in
And they already
hardcore, you
they
had
already
to
nerfed
run
all
that
the unique-
anyway, though, to be fair.
Yeah, but I mean, they nerfed all the unique flasks, so now you're giving up another suffix on one of your blue flasks. So it's like, hey, if you want that freezer staunching, gotta choose, which I like.
Pathfinder
think-
buff.
I think I kind of like it. It gives power to the player somehow. Like you can, of course, still decide if you want to roll it at all, but it's now a choice. It's more of a choice how you want to deal with it. I like that, and it's gonna make temp chains feel
I
much
almost
less
want to
like an S.
say that they did this as like to be more noob friendly or new player friendly, because I can imagine people getting like temp chains maps, hexproof or not hexproof, sorry, temp chains and feeble. And if you're a crit build, you know, even now with like worse crit on some ascendancies, you're gonna be like, what is this map? Why is this so stupid? And then like now with a warding, it's like, oh, okay, that feels pretty darn good, and I get free pack size.
It's super strong though. Being able to turn off Enfeeble.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
pretty sick.
Don't need to be LA weakness capped if you don't want to. If you want to be really, you know, YOLO, you can do it. Perfectly 75 resist after Kitava, no problem.
Yeah, okay.
And oh yeah, the big one, the like rearing ugly head that people are starting to notice. So with the wonderful system that is Pantheon, and Pantheon boss upgrades not being persistent across characters.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I just noticed that yesterday when I made my new character. I was like, wait a minute, maybe it's because I haven't completed Sin's quests or something and unlocks, but it's like, wait, that's grayed out. That is grayed out.
So before we get into it, so if anyone who doesn't know in chat, so currently the Pantheon system, as you kill bosses while leveling, you unlock a base power. You can then in maps use an item called the Divine Vessel to like upgrade your powers even further by killing particular map bosses. Because of this, you want to run particular maps which you may not necessarily want on your Atlas, which if you were to then remove, make a new character, because either you reroll or you die in hardcore, you would then need to completely reshape your map again to get the boss buff, and yeah, it's pretty excessively expensive and kind of silly in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't like it. not new player friendly. It's not intuitive. It's annoying because it's like, you know, you're telling me I have to go back and put in this vessel, which is like for some people a very rare drop if you don't play a lot, and I have to do this like tier 3. Got to do some tier 5s. It's just a mess.
Does anyone like the system out of interest?
It doesn't really bother me that much. Like, it wouldn't really bother me if they changed it either. But I mean, you don't really use that many powers on each character, so getting the upgrades just for the powers that you do use it's not that big a deal. I don't think. I don't know. I don't think it's that much of a problem. And the vessels are, what do they cost in trade? A couple chaos or something?
It's not that. It's about being able to remove the. So for example, like Pox did a video when he was talking about how the fully upgraded reduced fire damage one, you kill, I think it's like a tier 12 or tier 13 boss to get the reduced shock thing. That's obviously insanely powerful for RF. You will want that in hardcore. So you do that. Let's then say he dies, and as Pox does, he remakes the same build more powerful again or whatever. He then needs to... So to first upgrade it, he needs to get the red map on his map, do it, then spend like 50, 70 chaos removing it from his map, remake the character, then spend another 50, 70 chaos doing the exact same thing just for that one. And because it doesn't persist at all, whenever you reroll, you have this very limiting cost. And the thing which is so annoying about it is because in a hardcore setting anyway, you're going to be running some potentially really sketchy maps that you wouldn't normally run. So you're completely over-gearing a process for a very minor buff. So is it even worth doing in the first place? And that's where it becomes so clunky. And it is an invisible... Like, someone made a very well-written Reddit thread about this. All of these things are invisible buffs that you don't notice. While they do have power to them, the fact that some of them are broken and you can't even tell they're broken. So like Solaris and Lunaris, they don't give you raw Physmit. They give you armor scaling, which is completely different. And there is no way of telling except for examining your character sheet. And the fact that multiple of these just straight up don't work as they're meant to, and there's no way you can tell, is just like, come on, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I have plenty of problems with the Pantheon system we talked about in the last podcast.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about the upgrading the powers in the perspective of you might have specifically left that map unlocked and that sort of thing. Forgive me, it's 1 a.m. I didn't think about it from that
It's fine,
perspective.
it's fine.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah. I know. Hopefully, do you think they would revisit that, or do you think they'll just be like, nope, this is the system we like. We like people not shaping the maps too much?
Oh, unless I get a lot of complaints for that, I don't really see him changing that, because it seems like the Pantheon powers are a character-specific thing. So, yeah, I don't really see him kind of changing that. Like, I guess thematically, but also just like, even mechanically, it's your power. Your character has gone and captured that power. So, I can see why they probably wouldn't change that unless there was like a lot of outcry about it.
Okay. Well, to move on then. New uniques and old ones. What are the uniques that have really stood out from you, either old or new, to keep an eye on? I know that CuteDog has got a particular favourite that he wants to talk about.
Ooh, the goal is back. Ooh, the goal. I tried to sell mine for 49 exalts. Didn't work out. Ended up selling for 10. Because there was a period of 2 days where it was the only one there. I was like, okay, 49 exalts sounds like a good price. And then I sold it yesterday for 10. It feels really bad. I was like the other like 2 sellers. I was like, just hold out. Just list yours for 48.9. It's fine. Just kidding. It shouldn't be worth more than a headhunter. But so with the goal now, the reason it wasn't as widespread at endgame last league is because if you're playing a Vol skill, your opportunity cost is, do I stop and not get the juice for Spark or Fireball and pick up the shrine? And with all the particles, I can't even see the shrine. Okay, so it slows me down when you're playing a really fast build. Now that we don't have Vol skills as prominent, or prominent at all, what's happening is if you play like EK Nova, you play Dark Pact, you have time to pick up the shrine. You also, every single shrine is beneficial to you. The least beneficial one is the regen one, because you have all packed, and also there's a secret buff where the shrine now has a very noticeable icon on the map. I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's the actual shrine icon directly glowing on your mini map. So you'll never miss one again. And it's also lasts for 15 seconds on the ground. Before it was like 6 seconds or something. So they made substantial quality of life improvements to it. So it's just an absolutely ridiculous item for what you get. Like and it was weighted before, but now I feel like they changed the weighting, acceleration, and massive shrine shows up far more often than I used to see them. And so it's just, it's a hot item.
Remember, can you stack the shrines?
Yeah.
You can stack the shrines, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
The
Nice.
first one you pick up, I believe, is like 25 seconds. If you refresh it with the same one, it goes to 30 seconds, and you can have multiple of them at a time. So it's very nice.
Why did
Yeah.
you sell it out of interest?
I needed money really badly for my next build, which uses 2 of the new uniques. So I'm excited for those as well. Tempest Binding and Coming Calamity. I think it's going to be pretty hot.
What do they do
I'm
again,
excited
sorry?
Coming Calamity is the Herald chest. Your Herald's
Oh, yeah.
always reserve 45, so you can 6-link 2 Heralds now if you use the Tempest mask, which is basically it gives Innervate level 18 and Ice Bite level 18 to whatever socketed. So, 4-link in the helm, making it a pseudo 6-link. So I'm going to try something with that. Hopefully it works out. I'm really
Do you
excited
know
for it.
how the Grand Summon Harbinger of Storms skill work?
Yeah, so he casts Arc or like some other thing on your character, and it chains to, I think, up to 5 mobs. So you can either shock or chill up
Okay.
to 5 mobs around you. So you get the little rolling start to your auto bomber if you want. It's kind of nice.
Oh,
Nice.
No, that's actually, yeah,
That's
really
pretty
good.
cool.
He looks cool. He's just like this purple dude. He doesn't look like the actual Harbinger. He's a more transparent purple shade, and he just continuously casts Arc on your character. It's nice.
You can't socket support gems into it, and then that buffs the Harbinger dude, right?
Let me check. No,
It says Grand Summon Harbinger of Storms
Yeah.
skill, right?
I'm looking
So,
at
yeah,
the
it
skill
does-
right now. It
isn't
doesn't have the
influenced.
links in it.
Yeah.
So he's immortal. So you just cast him once at the beginning of your session, and you just go. It's nice.
Infinite duration too, or
Infinite duration, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a super golem, isn't it?
Yeah, it's,
Okay.
it's kind of nice. Excited for these items.
cool. There's also the like everyone is talking about this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Debon Sturge. You guys seen that too? The amount of flat damage you get on that, plus attack speed or movement speed, and 150% increased elemental damage if you've used the war cry recently. It's just like absurd amounts and so easy to scale. I found one of these and I thought instantly, shit, this is gonna be I can sell this for several exalts right now. And I looked it up and it cost like 1 chaos.
They're super common. They're
Yeah.
crazily common
Super
how strong it
great.
is.
I think I found 3 of them now. They seem like a very easy thing to get going. But holy shit, like just the scaling of this X, it to me it seems like too easy of a choice almost. Like why would you not use this if you're playing
I mean,
elemental
it is
scaling?
pretty obnoxious to use. I mean, I guess the argument is you only need to war cry on rares and bosses. You don't need the damage all the time. But you know,
Don't you use war cries normally?
yeah, but you don't have to like use them every 4 seconds. Like that's a bit
True.
excessive. And also, don't they
True.
do knockback? Like a friend of mine was trying to sell a build to me, and it just sounded like the clunkiest thing I'd ever heard. It's just like, okay, so I walk up to the pack, I war cry, I then ice crash, and then only hit like half the pack, I then step a bit, and then I ice crash again, then I war cry, and I was just like, oh god, that sounds dreadful. Like, I know Mathel was like doing some pretty cool cyclone stuff with it, and it is like a really solid starter weapon, but I don't know how much, like, if it will stick around as like this is the build defining weapon of choice.
But starter weapon, like
Considering how much it costs, like considering you can buy it for like a chaos, it's insane. Like it's really solid.
but what kind of two-handed elemental weapon does more damage than this? If you use the war cries.
If you use the war
Is-
cries, Oros is kind
there
of
even any?
close, but it's what 450 top end, cold, 300 to 450 or something.
It's 500 top end,
Oh, 500. Oh, that is quite a lot. Yeah.
or 460 to 500 top end. So it's just absolutely beastly. But yeah, I don't know if it's possible to get a rare that can beat this, but it just, and right now with elemental being really solid with the passive tree buffs to it, it just seems like an incredibly easy choice to make. But true, it probably becomes a little tedious having to rely on it every 4 seconds.
But again, you only need the damage for rise and bosses. Like you don't need it for white mobs. And also because it is cold damage, it means you can use frost bomb with it for even more penetration on bosses and stuff like that, which is nice. Like that makes it a lot more attractive than if it was fire, for example, with Oros or whatever.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And because it's an axe, you can actually use good skills with it, which you can't with Oros because it's a sword. So yeah, it has a lot going for it. Like, it's really solid.
I guess you don't really benefit from the bleed notes when going axe and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, isn't it kind of weird that you can get bleed on mace notes? I mean, sure, if you keep hammering someone in the head, eventually you're going to bleed.
I guess they'll bleed out.
Yeah, it just feels. That feels like that wasn't necessary. That ruins like some of the theme for maces.
Maybe it's internal bleeding with maces, possibly.
I guess. That's actually a decent logic.
Yeah. You can have that one, Chris. Just tweet that out later. I think for me the uniques that I'm like most excited for it would be again the Allopathy gloves, just because I think they're just powerful in so many different builds, and also Sintrek. Sintrek are crazy good. Those are the evasion boots with just like the flat 200 ES on them, meaning they didn't get affected by the ES changes. So if you are playing a CI build, you're using Sintrek. And they're so good. And yeah, it's just
isn't that the old ones?
Yeah, they're not new, they're the old ones, but they completely ignored the ES changes, and you can still get like good CI. Like I know a few people doing CI builds and they're like 10k ES quite happily. Like, it's not completely dead.
I was curious about, and this is probably going back a bit, but have any of you guys played around with the new unique hazardous research, the threshold jewel, the spark jewel?
I know a couple of people that are playing
I know a few people. Apparently, the issue with that, though, is it doesn't actually shoot it as a nova out of your character. It shoots it in front of you, then novas.
That's awkward.
So Nin, who's really active in quite a few different chats, he's been playing with it, and he was saying that it feels really bad when you're mapping and just a pebble eats your entire nova of sparks. And it's just like, he says the build works really nicely. He's doing nova spark for map clear, then he's doing like a storm burst setup for single target. And he really loves the character, but it's also one of the characters you hate playing because of the small little things like that. So yeah,
it looks fun.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in trying this for sure. But for map clearing, for sure, I guess for single target it just would suck, yeah.
CuteDog, I'm curious, did you ever actually like make like a planned build for that charge dash cast and channeling spark thing? Because people keep fucking asking me about it. It's really annoying.
There's a streamer who came up with that idea. His name's NWD __, and he's playing it right now with cast while channeling. The thing about it is, you can. I'm pretty sure you can still go faster with a shield charge self cast. So cast while channeling is a little bit clunky. The damage seemed okay. Also, I don't know if do you guys get disoriented by flicker strike? Because I do. No. And with cast while channeling, it just instantly changes the entire orientation of the screen, right? When you
charge dash. Yeah.
When you charge dash to another location, that's like really jarring for me. So those are a couple things I didn't like, but it's okay. It's not new Vol Spark 3.0 in any way, shape, or form, but it is good. It's like lazy, just like charge dash, dash, and then it's it's okay.
There seems to be an overwhelming.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, overall, this patch, there seems to be an overwhelming number of somewhat decent uniques. Like that. Instead of just kind of like scrolling through lists, like a lot of the Harbinger uniques, you're like, yeah, it's somewhat decent. That's somewhat decent with these. That's kind of usable. A lot of them are probably only going to be like a few cows, but a lot of these are pretty usable.
Really? Like, I haven't looked into the prices of the Harbingers, but they seemed really expensive with how you acquire them.
Oh, they were like crazy expensive at first, but now like the fragments are worth like a couple cows. Some of them. So some of them are really cheap now. Like
wait till next week.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy cheap after the changes. But but they're all kind of decent, right? Like they're cheap, yeah, which doesn't necessarily mean they're bad. A lot of them just quite decent. There's also a lot of very decent looking poison uniques, which kind of fits into what I was saying earlier, where they kind of didn't get enough time to finish making it good. So they're like, yeah, we got all these uniques ready to go for the new poison system, and poison's good, and people are going to be hyped to try all the new poison builds, but... So, A lot of these poison uniques, man, I'm like, oh god, that'd be really nice if poison was decent. I'm like, then there's you can poison with cold skills. I'm like, that's cool.
I got so triggered by the poison unique reveal because I was so excited. They're like 24 new uniques coming out in 3.0. I'm like, oh, God. Oh, I'm checking Reddit. I'm like, poison. Okay, I wonder what the next one is. Like, poison. I wonder what the next one is. I'm just like, 12 uniques later, I'm still seeing poison. I'm like, what? Did anyone else have that reaction? Or like, you just keep updating, it's just the same fucking thing over and over again?
Yeah, absolutely. And you just end up scrolling over it because poison, no. That's not what I'm looking at right now.
And each time I'm like, oh man, I really wish poison was worth playing because that's a decent looking unique. Like, these are big.
This could actually be fun if it was good.
Yeah, and I've been finding some of them. I'm like, oh, this is a really nice poison unique. I'm like, vendor.
Did you guys try Soul Tether, the belts?
Not yet, no.
You cannot recharge energy shield. You cannot regenerate energy shield. You lose 5% of energy shield per second, and life leech is applied to energy shield instead while on full life.
One of my viewers was saying it was pretty damn good.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about this. I haven't tried it myself. It's supposedly pretty expensive too.
What sort of builds are people doing it in?
With this?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Okay.
That's why I've been drifted with.
Maybe they're like secret builds, man. They've just been saying it's good. I don't know what yet. I haven't seen any of them. That's the thing. I just keep hearing from people like, yeah, I'm using Soul Tether. It's pretty good.
I do love it when people do that in chat. They're like, yeah, so I've been doing this thing. It's pretty cool. I'm like, oh, so like, what are you doing? Oh, you know, just this thing. I'm like, okay.
It's less than 1C. Oh, really? Oh.
Is it actually really cheap, is it? No.
Yeah, I was told just a couple of days ago it was
very
expensive.
specific item. So it's not that
it's not surprising.
Yeah. Even if it is really good.
Has anyone seen a finished build with the Harbinger sword? Because that looks insanely cool.
Those look cool.
Yeah.
What is the name of that sword?
I don't even know. It's the one which has spell damage on
Ripening Thoughts.
That's the
Ripening Thoughts. Level 20 Storm Cascade when you attack. And it's also got a shitload of spell damage on it, as well as added lightning damage to attacks, added lightning damage to spells, area of effect, and it gives you a Harbinger of Arcane, which
that's
I think that one
Surge.
just casts Arcane Surge. Yeah, which is kind of like the lamest of all of them because it's pretty easy to get Arcane Surge. But I guess it's free Arcane Surge. You don't need to link
life thing.
Yeah, I guess so.
10% increase there. I think.
Yeah, it looks really cool, but it seems like it's actually not very strong. Though.
Is that because of the Storm Cascade that just doesn't really deliver, or
the visual of Storm Cascade is nuts?
It might just be more that you really just have to do some sort of like full-on Crown of Eyes build to really min-max it. Just chucking it on like an attack character probably is not very good because it's a mediocre weapon and it's also a mediocre spellcaster weapon.
So Storm Cascade, is that a spell or is it a...
Yeah, it's a spell. So this is like a very true hybrid spell attack build. That's not like cast on crit.
Yeah.
So
I guess it would be cool with Crown of Eyes.
Yeah, it seems like that's kind of the way you have to go. But yeah, you know, it's a bit slow. It's not particularly high DPS. So I think people are probably mostly chucking it on their attack build and being like, oh, this is cool, but not very strong. And then people like maybe trying on a spellcaster as a way of casting it as a spell, but 1.3 attacks per second for casting a spell is not particularly good. So I think you need to actually be doing some sort of attacking build that scales both of them at once efficiently. So I don't know. I might give it a go at some point and see how it goes. I'm pretty curious about it.
So hang on, Ziggy, are you saying that you're going to make a cast on melee kill build?
It's not cast on melee kill.
Before.
What are you talking about?
Scaling attack and spell damage. You kill them with the thing, and then no.
Melee kill triggers me pretty hard. No thanks.
Well. Okay, well, see, we've kind of covered everything in a roundabout way. Oh, the new currency orbs for Harbingers. How do people feel about them? Like, the binding orb is so nice for leveling. Juicy. Up to a 4-link alchemy and a thing, and they're super common as well.
I've been using it quite a bit at endgame, just when I get item level 84 helmets, like your whatevers, that you go and do your Uberlab enchants on. I just chuck them on that, man. Getting the instant 4-link and sometimes getting decent starts. I'm like, yeah, that's alright. So they do have a bit of a use at endgame, but yeah, they're mainly for leveling. They're really nice for leveling, aren't they?
I'm curious what you guys think about the one that upgrades maps.
So that's actually what I was going to say when you guys were talking about the mapping system, but we kind of went in a different direction. Is that it seems like this is probably despite like, oh, this is no no X League where we had lots of map drops. I mean, it seems like this is the easiest league than ever to actually progress through your Atlas. You know, with that easy changing of maps to fill out your Atlas, and then the easy progression with the Harbinger orbs, like that's. I mean, you're getting solo self-found guys getting up into tier 16 maps super easy. We've got that Shaper Kill on day 2, where it was day 6 before for hardcore Shaper Kill. This time day 2 was like hour 47 of day 2 or something. Like that's fucking crazy. So they're pretty big.
Though. It kind of negates a bit of that concept that is gated behind randomness, because you now, well, you can forcefully upgrade these maps now. Makes it a little easier to progress.
I like it because it means less buying maps on PoE Trade.
Yeah, exactly. Don't need to unlock it like that anymore.
I like that quite a bit.
Quick question: the Horizons orb, it can't change like a tier 5, 10, or 15 into a unique Harby or Harby map, can it?
No, it seems only the Harbinger orb does that. I've been using a lot of the Horizon orbs, and I feel like that would have made the rounds pretty quickly if it could do that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
But you can turn like my first tier 6 map that I went to go, I had a Harbinger orb and I chucked it on there and got a tier 10 yellow map. Ran straight into that. I was like, that's pretty nice.
Is there any limit on like how high it can push stuff, or?
Like can it go from T15 to 16? I guess that's be the question. That'd be nice.
I don't actually know 100% for sure. I assume it can, but I don't think you can take tier 16 to tier 17. If that's what you're asking.
No, not like can we invent maps? I didn't mean that. No.
I have a question I would like to ask you guys here near the end, each individually. If you could, right now in the game in its current state, if there was one thing you could change about the game that would make it better in your opinion, what would it be? If Cute, you start.
Something to do for more hardcore players. Just something to grind for after you've gotten to a high level.
So
like, do you give an example?
High level drops or something?
No, like right now it's like you just do the maps over and over, and like Harbinger, the rewards from Harbingers isn't anything special, right? To like improve my character, not really. It's just more maps. I'd like something for like the truly hardcore. Like what if there was not Paragon, but to draw like a parallel. I always say this. And especially since they reduce the XP now on average of mobs, like you get to level 100 and you prestige, and the next character you make gets 1 skill point, just one skill point to start off with at level 1. That's it. And you do it again, and now you have 2. And so someone who's level 20, level 100 has 20 more skill points than you. Yeah, that's a bad idea, but like just something so that the hardest of core players can do. All right.
Okay.
I like the idea of that too. Yeah, like not that idea, but having something more meaningful stuff to do. Yeah. Then I feel like it kind of flattens out. It's super fun getting into maps, but then it starts to go down.
Or how about this? Let's say you get all your gear, you get your headhunter, you get all your 6 links. Okay, you're done with your character. What if you could use your currency on the Atlas? You can vol your sextants. You can exalt your sextant. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff going on there. All right, don't even get me started. I'm getting pretty crazy with this. But what's the point of the currency when you have all the best gear, right? It doesn't do anything.
Just see someone at GGG making notes.
You vol a sextant, your mob has like there could be bad rewards, negative 50%. No, 50% less pack size. You now are affected by every curse in the game, and the plus side would be like +1 breach.
Worth got breach. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this would be the single largest improvement for the community as a whole if PoE had a box price. Because if PoE had a box price, we would kill the free game no bitching.
Free game.
You don't like memes?
I like memes, but it's gotten to the point where some people don't know it's a meme. Like some people legitimately don't know it's a meme. Make PoE cost like $1 and I'm happy. Just like $1 buy-in and we're chilling.
free memes.
No
bitching,
bitching.
Okay?
About you, Ziggy.
I mean, oh god. So like AFK notification on PoE trade, yes, please. I would. I mean, that's. I can just everyone's thinking that, right? That's probably like one of the number one annoyances. Oh wait, I know. Okay, above everything else, I don't care. They can leave poison dead in the ground for all I care. I just want one more slot on my currency tab because right now I have the shards and the orbs of all the new ones, and then I have in my essence tab the 3 slots, but there's 4 breach lords. There's 5 breach lords.
That
oh my
is
god, we
actually
need
rather
2 more. I
annoying.
just realized there's actually 5.
Yeah,
Because
you're right
I just got some Chayula splinters, and I'm like, where do I put these? I have to go around and put these in my map tab or some shit like that. It's triggering me so hard.
Bex did announce apparently that they will be expanding it.
Good. I need 2 more, at least 2 more, if not 5 more.
So
On the
I, of
currency
course,
tabs.
asked you guys so I could give my own opinion on this too.
Yeah,
And,
no, next topic, right? Come on, let's go. No, go on. What's
I
your
would
one
just really like loot tables in the game. I want more identity to each boss, each map. I want a reason to farm specific maps over just more density in the map. I want the bosses to be either harder, or actually I would like them to be harder, and I want more reward, but I want certain places where I can farm for stuff. And don't say divination cards, because that's a lost game.
But oh, okay. I feel like I have to disagree with you, but in a way that I like loot tables, but I like the way that GGG is implementing them. Like, as in, Atziri has their own loot, and the Labyrinth has its own loot, and the Harbinger maps have their own loot. I like loot tables in select content, not everything.
The thing is, how many realistically get access to farm Uber Atziri? And the other thing with regular Atziri, none of the stuff is really worth anything. And it's not fun to farm those things because there's no reward for really doing it. And there is some reward for Uber Atziri at some point, right? But the same for Shaper. It can be good if you're like among the first people to do it, but once the market starts to get saturated with these things, the risk versus reward is just completely unbalanced at that point. I feel like right now with maps, there's no difference if you run any tier 6 map. You can get exactly the same stuff in any tier 6 map except for divination cards, right? And that just makes it feel like, to me at least, when I enter a map, that I'm just rolling a slot machine, and I just keep rolling. I press the same button all over. It doesn't matter if I put any form of proper choice into this. My actions doesn't matter. I just have to wait, get lucky, and there is one item. That would be so much more fun if we could just say, hey, Thicket map, there's actually a significant higher chance for you to find this particular item, or have Merveil or any cold themed boss drop high, or have higher chance of dropping cold items or something like that. Just so there's something to farm for. I think that's why I like Uberlab, because it feels like there's a point to what you're farming there. But if I'm in a map, it doesn't matter.
No, I would agree with that. And I mean, I guess technically that's not really loot tables. It's more like loot weighting, if anything, because you're not removing the loot from the rest of the game. You're just adding like a weighted thing to it.
Yeah.
But no, I agree. True. It would make the Atlas potentially a more interesting system. Assuming it was done... I think the problem is, like, if it was done correctly, it would then maybe lead people to making more choices, but there is also the risk that if it isn't done properly, it just, like, even more so promotes insert racecourse meta, for example. If it's just like, this is a linear map, which also has good reward, everyone only does this.
It would, of course, have to be implemented in a balanced way.
If you're suggesting just like a mild kind of like system where it's like these bosses have or these maps have a slight bias towards this type of unique, then actually that's actually really cool.
Yeah.
Like I don't want like a strong weighting system like you can only get this unique in this map.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. For like all the uniques. So yeah, if it's still dropping kind of like as it is everywhere, and then you're playing the icy themed maps or underground withers, and you're getting those icy uniques, like Yeah, it's kind of cool. Well,
Yeah.
I think I'd enjoy that.
No, I agree.
A little more interesting.
Okay. Well, on that then, are there any more off topics or soapboxes people want to get out of the way before we finish up?
Everyone get excited for middle of next week.
For
It's gonna be
maybe
fun.
supporter packs, I'm looking forward to crying over my bank balance when the supporter packs finally come out. Why do you
looking
think
forward
they've
to
delayed
this
them so
stuff.
much out of interest?
For monies. No, I don't
Well,
know.
I
I have
feel
no
like they would
idea.
have made money if they had him at the start, I reckon, with all the extra hype. I think it was the reason they gave for the Stash Tab sale too. They didn't want to overload their customer support staff while they were dealing with, all the new people playing the game and having problems. So, I think that I don't know, like, my instinct on this is to give them credit for sacrificing some money in order to make sure that the launch experience was smoother. Because I think that's what they did. From what I heard, so I think that's what they've done,
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
which is commendable.
I was also pretty impressed by the launch. I know it was rough for a few hours, but I didn't expect it to launch as smoothly as it did.
Like 2 hours, yeah.
Yeah, it
That
was
was
really
only 2 hours of issues. It was pretty damn good overall.
Yeah.
There's been some like obscure kind of.
Oh,
fucked
the
up bugs
character
with
deleting level 1 Scion stuff. Yeah.
People turns into my level 89 character turned into a level 1 Scion.
Do they fix that, or does that guy still have a level 1 Scion?
I think the bug
think
is still
they-
ongoing, I don't know.
That sucks.
It's
That's
apparently
gotta be
like
so
Chris is saying
demoralizing.
it's like a 1 in 250,000 bug or something, and they're like, yeah, they're figuring it out. So it's kind of
What if it
fucked up.
happened to
Yeah.
#1 ladder player? That'd be nice. Like hardcore. It's like, oh wow, back to level 1.
What I would,
Seems like there was
what I
some
would
people
really
with
like
that.
is if that happened to Rise just as we finish the podcast, just like a nice little BM for
Amazing.
skipping the podcast fishing ladder. He hits that next level up, and level 1 Scion. Ah, beautiful.
There are some issues with people getting flagged and banned yesterday too.
when they leveled, yeah.
Yeah, so basically,
Right.
just don't level up, chat, and you'll be safe. As long as you never level up, you'll be safe from the system.
Yeah, that's a solution to it,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah.
I like that. You have the best logic.
Yeah.
Talking.
What you
Or I
can
guess
do
it's-
is that you can use the vendor recipe. So just as you're about to level up, you de-level yourself by 1, and then you'll reset your XP bar, and that way you can infinitely map, no problem.
Good point.
Logic.
Logic.
Well,